Chapter 1384. The elimination of the intercepting circle meant that the war had entered a new stage. The World Tree had the coordinates of the Kundi race refugees, and the army left behind temporary strongholds along the way. They split into multiple routes and headed toward the flickering world. Like green roots that grew endlessly in the universe, they slowly extended toward the territory of the three universal civilizations, spreading inch by inch. The three universal civilizations, on the other hand, used beyond visual range weapons and harassing tactics to delay the enemy. The players did not have much of a reaction to the loss of the intercepting circle, and their morale was not affected. In their eyes, this was just a normal development of the main storyline. At most, some players who liked the storyline would post on the forums to analyze the future trend of the war, but most of them were just guesses. What had the greatest impact was the player's main storyline mission that was ongoing. The requirements had changed, and the condition of guarding the intercepting circle had been crossed out to stop the World Tree army as much as possible. However, most of the players were quite happy. The space-time splicing tactic had a place to be used again. They had realized that they were re-employed, and there were more job opportunities. During the war, mercenary participants like the players were the happiest. The reward level of the mission had obviously increased by several levels, and their wallets were filling up several times faster. During the harassment phase, the three universal civilizations had left a large number of death squad positions for the players, which made it convenient for Han Technician. He did not have to divert his attention to fertilize the players, and his energy was focused elsewhere. Flickering World, Black Star Territory. A huge metal fortress floated in the starry sky. It was triangular in shape, and every corner had a slender magnetic field confinement track. It looked like a transparent pipe, but it was actually a fast shuttle bridge that connected to a crescent-shaped mechanical device at the end. These three devices were like suction cups, sucking in 3 stars from afar. They were all celestial bodies that had been moved over. After special treatment, such as gravitational restraint and energy restraint, they were very stable. The 3 crescent-shaped mechanical devices were called star guides, used to guide the energy of the celestial bodies. This was a model that was used for individual cultivation. It could temper the body, charge the energy, and strengthen the endurance. It could adjust the output power of the celestial bodies. This metal fortress was a specially built training ground, equipped with all kinds of top-notch training facilities, such as the star training room that tempered the body with star power, the environment simulation room that converted all kinds of cosmic radiation, the extreme gravity room with ultra-high density, and so on. There were also cultivation-type universal treasures provided by the 3 universal civilizations, and many beyond grade, which could stimulate the potential of different races and systems. It could be said to be the best training ground for supers in the entire explored universe. Those who could receive training here were not ordinary people. More than 95% of the beyond grade A seeds in the entire explored universe were sent here regardless of whether they were civilians or direct descendants of civilizations. At the same time, there were also other calamity grades with potential selected by the various large organizations. At this moment, in the open-air square of the training ground, a small group of people stood in formation. They looked at the row of figures in front of them with almost fanaticism. Most of their gazes were focused on Han Shao in the center position. All of you are calamity grade supers. I believe there is no need for me to explain why you are here. From today onwards, all the facilities here will be free for all of you to use. We will set up a training schedule for all of you, and in our free time, we will answer all of your training problems. Han Shao spoke loudly as he scanned the crowd in front of him. The establishment of this training ground was also the intention of the 3 universal civilizations. Originally, the direct descendants were all receiving training in the various military bases, but now they were all sent here by the 3 universal civilizations. The group of people in front of him were all high-level calamity grades, including all the top supers in the explored universe below the beyond grade A level. They provided the best facilities, the strongest teachers, and the best resources in order to produce as many beyond grade as is possible in 11 years. Facing the suffocating power of the world tree, the three universal civilizations could not care less about the super imbalance. Understood, Hardaway shouted excitedly. The hundreds of beyond grade A seeds who had already joined the Black Star Corps immediately agreed. Under their lead, the people of the other organizations also responded. Han Xiao glanced at him. There were many familiar faces among them. The beyond grade A seeds of the Black Star Corps had also been added to the training list by him. Lagi, Hardaway, Jekana, Nero, Mia, and the others were among them. However, not all the potential stocks participated in the training. Some of the golden leaks who were especially promising were given special treatment in private, such as Carrot, Evans, and the others. However, let me say the ugly words first. All the people who become beyond grade, as in the training, have to participate in the war unconditionally as your tuition fee. Otherwise, we will take back your strength. This is a deal. It's not too late to back out now. Hearing this, the excitement on everyone's faces did not change at all. They had long known the price. However, the value of this training was extraordinary. Most of the beyond grade A seeds present had grown on their own. In the past, there was no way they could casually use such treasures, and they could even consult different beyond grade as at any time. Even if they joined a beyond grade A organization, they would not receive such treatment. Compared to such benefits, participating in the war was nothing. Just as everyone was excited, an unsociable voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. Sai, I'm going to be sacrificed in the war anyway. What's the point of becoming stronger? Han Zhao's eyes twitched. The style was too obvious. He did not even need to look to know who was speaking. He immediately said, I'll say this in advance. Our training is compulsory. No slacking in any form is allowed, and the rest time is strictly controlled. Some people better be careful. Sigh, totalitarianism, it was still the same voice that sighed. Han Xiao could not be bothered with this loggy and continued. All right, I won't say anything unnecessary. I've already made a corresponding timetable for each of you. These instructors will be responsible for training you. Begin immediately. From now on, it's best not to waste a single second. As he spoke, the more than 10 beyond grade, as beside him, walked forward and took away batches of calamity grades to train them separately. Some ordinary beyond grade, as who did not have much room to grow, were more enthusiastic about being instructors. As long as they could train more comrades, they would be able to share the pressure. Their experience was also precious to the calamity grades. I hope that in 11 years, there will be more than 10 beyond grade as among this group of people, Han Xiaoxin thought to himself. Gathering all the potential stocks in the universe to help them grow, there was a chance for there to be a double-digit number of beyond grade as in 11 years. It was equivalent to helping a batch of leeks that had almost grown. With his targeted training, the guidance of the beyond grade as and the support of a large number of resources, the chances of a high-level calamity grade completing the last step should be many times higher. Watching the group of potential stocks being taken away for training, Han Xiao turned to look at the other beyond grade as and nodded. It's the same for us. If there's a need, I can give you training suggestions. There were 2 batches of targets for the training. One was the calamity grades, and the other was the beyond grade as. The 2 were naturally different, and he was directly in charge of the latter. The many beyond grade as had been watching from the sidelines. At this moment, they looked at each other and felt a little awkward. Those who could advance to the beyond grade A realm were all geniuses. They had all found their own path and had been groping for their own cultivation. Suddenly, they had to accept the guidance of others. Many of them were not used to it. However, Han Zhao's prestige was very high. Everyone present had agreed to the training plan he had proposed during the regular meeting, so they could not go back on their words now. One by one, they came up to take the needles, which made Han Xiao feel good. Han Xiao took this opportunity to collect information on most of the beyond grade as and analyze their abilities. Why do I feel like I'm a Pokemon trainer? After analyzing for a while, this thought suddenly appeared in Han Zhao's mind. On the other side, when the many beyond grade saw Black Star accurately point out their weaknesses and even give an effective training plan, they could not help but be stunned. They knew that Black Star had a good eye, but it was all hearsay. Now that they had seen it for themselves, they could not help but be interested. Could it be that you've grown so fast because of this ability? Olu was surprised. To a certain extent, that's indeed the case. Han Xiao spread his hands. The title of Super Teacher should be given to you. If you were in the Radiant Federation, I might have lost my job. Verena had a helpless expression. Don't worry, it's not too late to lose your job now. Han Xiao could not be bothered to speak human language. After distributing the training plan, he urged everyone to hurry up and cultivate. Although he really wanted to find someone to spar with and try to draw abilities, the training had just begun, so it was better to let others get used to it first. The many beyond grade as dispersed. Their training ground was not this training base. Han Xiao had modified a few planets nearby to serve as temporary training grounds for the beyond grade as. For the next 11 years, most people would be active around this area. However, this was only limited to ordinary beyond grade, as and some high-grade beyond grade as. People like Cassie, Manison, Hela, and the others all had their own special training routes and did not need to come here for training. After doing all this, Han Xiao was about to return to the workshop to continue his research when his communicator suddenly rang. The caller was the department leader in charge of contacting the Secondary Dimension Expedition team. Your Excellency Blackstar, I have bad news for you. In the last contact, we discovered that the fleet carrying the emissary you sent out has disappeared. We are unable to contact him at the moment. Disappeared? Han Zhao's eyes moved, and he silently activated the observer's mark. When Harrison had set off, he had used his void talent to set an observer's mark on Harrison. Because he had not gained anything for a long time, he would not constantly check. The last time he checked was a day and a half ago, and everything was normal. Activating his ability, his vision suddenly changed, leaving only a deep darkness. He could not see Harrison's figure at all. Before he could take a closer look, his vision suddenly disappeared, which meant that the observer's mark had been destroyed. Did I encounter something in the secondary dimensions? Han Xiao frowned. To be able to destroy his observer's mark, there was a high chance that it was a beyond grade A energy rank. Without hesitation, he changed into a specific king and directly teleported to the throne that Harrison had taken away. With a flash of light, his surroundings turned upside down. Han Xiao had already arrived in a space that was like a black ocean. There was nothing else around. The throne should have been in Harrison's room, but at this moment, the fleet was gone, and Harrison and the other crew members were nowhere to be seen. Only the throne was left floating alone. What is this place? Han Xiao looked around and was surprised to find that his energy senses seemed to have disappeared. He could not sense the situation in this deep sea, and the mechanical suit's radar also malfunctioned. At the same time, his vision was greatly suppressed, and he could not see his fingers in front of him. He released a group of detectors and connected them with mechanical force. However, the detectors only flew a short distance before they suddenly lost their connection. It was as if they had been swallowed by this black ocean. Han Xiao tried to shoot a few energy beams in one direction, but they were like clay oxen entering the sea. There was no reaction at all. This secondary dimension is quite strange. What did Harrison encounter? Han Zhao's eyes flickered. The secondary dimension world was filled with all kinds of possibilities, and anything could happen. The water was very deep, and this expedition team had already been in it for more than a year. He could not say what accidents would happen. Just as Han Xiao was about to set off to search this secondary dimension, a huge pressure suddenly came from all directions, and there was a loud rumbling sound. It was as if this black ocean was suddenly roaring and pressing toward him. At the same time, a mental wave with a cold aura suddenly invaded his mind, and a solemn and ancient voice sounded. Foreign high-level life form, leave immediately, or you will become the enemy of the Realmless King. Chapter 1385. Realmless King? What the hell was that? It sounded quite scary. Han Xiao raised his brows with interest. If the problem here was purely the secondary dimension with strange rules, it would be a little troublesome. However, it was actually a sentient life form that could communicate, so it was much easier to deal with. At this moment, it was as if he was in a real deep sea. The huge water pressure came from all directions, covering the sky and the earth. However, this pressure only made his body tighten slightly and could not cause any damage. Compared to the Dragon Emperor's force field, this little bit of strength could not even be considered a massage. At most, it felt like he was wearing a layer of tights. The secondary dimension world was very dangerous, but if one reached the level of a peak beyond grade, most of the dangers would not be a threat, especially when he was one of the best among the peak beyond grade as long as it was not an anomaly like the Celestial Star Alliance, it would not be a problem. Han Xiao floated where he was and did not care about the pressure around him. His body did not move at all. He asked curiously, "What is this realmless king you're talking about?" As soon as he said that, another mental message was sent over with an even more majestic aura. The realmless king was born in the black sky storm and rose from the void. He is the lord of millions of dimensions, the hunter of thousands of worlds. Any life form that steps into his territory is a servant under the royal authority. Whoa, the scene suddenly became magical. Not bad. Such a long title. I feel like he's about to catch up to me. Han Xiao grinned. It sounded like a powerful dimensional god that occupied the deep secondary dimensions. If an ordinary beyond grade A encountered him, his life might be in danger. Unfortunately, he was not an ordinary beyond grade A. While he was pondering, this voice became stronger and stronger. It was as if a large bell was ringing in his mind, reverberating with a powerful aura. "Foreign life form, leave this place immediately, or I will expel you. You want to try?" Han Xiao raised his brows and mobilized the cells in his body. It was as if he had activated a mini reactor, suddenly pumping out energy. Chi! Golden electric arcs shot out of his body, leaving behind scorching light marks as if they had split the surrounding Black Sea. He flipped his palm, and a ball of light blue psionic energy appeared in his palm. It released a spherical shockwave that stirred up endless ripples on the surface of the sea. Although he did not know what was going on in this secondary dimension, the fact that his previous probing had no effect was most likely due to the lack of energy. Because he was worried about harming Harrison and the expedition fleet, Han Xiao did not explode with too much energy at once to blow up the entire secondary dimension. Instead, he controlled the energy output and increased it bit by bit. At first, there was no change. The burst of energy was like a stone sinking into the ocean, not causing any reaction. But after a while, the black liquid substance that filled the entire space began to vibrate faintly, as if it had exceeded the limit of its tolerance, setting off large waves. It was like the tentacles of a squid on an iron plate that were agitated and rolled up. Rumble. Amidst the tremors, Han Xiao sensed streams of undercurrents with strong impact gushing toward him. At the same time, he felt a piercing pain in his brain, as if he had been attacked on the mental level. But to him, it was like scratching an itch. In the blink of an eye, his HP bar was full. This black liquid substance was strange, causing his energy perception and detection radar to fail. He could not find the other party's location, so he could only use brute force to force the other party to show up. If this was a dimensional consciousness body, then the dimension itself was the other party's body. Releasing energy from it was equivalent to continuously giving the other party animus. Sooner or later, the other party would not be able to hold on. Not long after, the entire space began to vibrate violently, as if it would explode and disintegrate at any time. The mental attack became weaker and weaker, and it was already filled with pain. Han Xiao looked around and narrowed his eyes. "Still not coming out? Do you really want me to burst?" As soon as he said that, the pressure around him suddenly lightened. The black liquid substance shrank as if it had turned into a vortex. The Black Sea poured into it, like a bathtub full of water with a plug pulled out. As the Black Sea faded, Han Zhao's energy perception quickly recovered, and his vision returned to normal. This secondary dimension was a white world with nothing in it. It was like a secondary dimension that had yet to be fully formed, and it was also like all matter had been swept away by the receding Black Sea. In the distant horizon, a black vortex that was getting smaller and smaller was floating. It sucked away all the black matter, was about to open a spatial rift, wanting to escape in a panic. Running? I'll break your legs. Han Shao opened his hand, and mechanical soldiers appeared one after another along with mechanical force arcs. The scene was like scattering beans into soldiers. The mechanical army that appeared released the binding force field without hesitation and grabbed the black substance, preventing it from moving. At the same time, they used the special spatial device of the secondary dimension version to mend the spatial rift that the other party had torn open. This black liquid substance had strange characteristics and was slippery. However, under the control of Han Zhao's mechanical army, it was still fixed on the spot and turned into a high-density liquid ball. It kept changing shape and moving left and right as if it was struggling. At the same time, mental fluctuations kept shooting out in all directions with this liquid as the center. The solemn atmosphere from before was gone, leaving only shock and anger. Foreign life form, you will definitely pay the price for your actions now. The Realmless King will take it from you. Han Shao turned a deaf ear to it and told the mechanical army to increase the binding field. He then took out a cylindrical container, and like a whale swallowing the ocean, he put this massive matter into it and compressed it into a fist-sized liquid ball. It floated in the container, and thin electric arcs stuck to it, causing the liquid to tremble nonstop. It was very painful. This was the equipment he had specially made when he captured primal Esper ability entities. He did not expect it to be suitable for this strange substance. After being locked in the container, the liquid finally stopped. Han Shao knocked on the outer wall of the container and asked curiously, "What are you? Who do you think you are? Also, did a fleet pass by here recently? Where did you take them? So you're looking for that group of people. Looks like you're a high-level life form from the main material universe." The mental fluctuations of this liquid were unstable and had already been dyed with a layer of fear. However, it quickly turned into anger. "I'm just one of the guardians of the million dimensions. I've already offered them to the Realmless King. If you have the guts, go find him." "Offer?" Han Shao raised his brows. "Tell me everything you know." "Forget it. Seeing that you're not cooperating, I'll interrogate you." Han Shao poured his mechanical force into the container, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the container, forming a miniature ion thunderstorm. This ball of liquid was like a bug trapped in an electric mosquito swatter, crackling from the electricity. After torturing for a while, Han Shao finally got the information he wanted from the other party. This liquid life form was essentially an energy field life form, born in a secondary dimension that nurtured field-type life forms. This black liquid substance was the shell given to it by the so-called Realmless King. It claimed to be one of the guardians of the million dimensions, the confidant of the Realmless King, doubtful. Its name was Bobanica, which meant erosion and devouring. Through this black substance, the Realmless King devoured the matter and energy of various dimensions, transforming them into his own territory. He occupied this area with a large group of guardians under him, guarding the dimensions that he occupied. The fleet that Harrison was in was indeed taken away by him. Through the special connection between the black liquid substance and the Realmless King, he used dimensional teleportation and sent it to the king's land, where the Realmless King was. This was the main job of guardians like Bobanica. They intercepted the passing life forms and gave them to the Realmless King as offerings. "Tisk, looks like I have to find this Realmless King if I want to fish him out. With Harrison's luck, I don't know if it's good or bad for him to encounter such a thing." Han Shao stroked his chin. He pondered for a few seconds, shook his head, changed into the dimension travel mechanical suit, set the coordinates given by Bobanica, and shuttled toward the Realmless King. In the center of a certain secondary dimension, on a huge platform that looked like a black crystal, Harrison was floating in midair. His eyes were closed as if he had lost consciousness, but his face maintained a pained expression. One end of a black mist-like energy stream was connected to his glabella, and the other end was connected to a huge black finger. Light flowed on it. The owner of the finger was a black entity the size of a mountain. It was humanoid with several heads and a large number of arms. At this moment, it was sitting on a black throne. It was the Realmless King. After a while, the Realmless King retracted the energy stream. Harrison lost the power to float and fell onto the platform, still unconscious. Interesting. That tree has a new prey. I can harvest some sweet souls again. The realmless king let out a low laugh, but to others, it would only be a frenzied roar. As a powerful entity in the secondary dimension, the souls of life forms were rare delicacies. However, he could not completely descend into the main material universe and could only project a portion of his power. Furthermore, the main material universe was extremely vast. Without coordinates, he could only wander in the boundless starry sky, and it would be very difficult to find life forms. At this moment, he had absorbed the memories of these life forms in the main material universe and learned the coordinates and a large amount of information of the three universal civilizations. He also knew that the famous World Tree civilization was fighting with them. In his eyes, this was a feast to harvest souls. Under normal circumstances, even a powerful dimensional entity like him would be afraid of the power of a universal civilization and would not be willing to provoke them. However, if a universal civilization fell into a war, the situation would be different. He still had the guts to take advantage of the situation. You provoked that tree. Your doomsday is coming. Hee. Instead of becoming its servant, you might as well become my food. However, the world tree actually has the weakness of a main body. This is the first time I know. The realmless king moved his body, making rustling sounds like countless insects crawling. Then, the countless eyes on his body looked at the unconscious Harrison on the platform. Greed and desire appeared in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed them. It's rare to meet a life form with strong providence. If I eat you, my karma power will increase by a level. Unfortunately, the guy behind you is not to be trifled with. It's better to make a deal with him. The realmless king looked away. From Harrison's memories, he saw Han Zhao's figure and knew that the two of them had a close relationship. He was sufficiently afraid of the top experts of the main material universe. It was precisely because he saw a backer like Black Star that he did not dare to eat Harrison immediately. The realmless king knew very well that this was one of the ways to display the power of karma. However, he did not plan to violate it, because there was a high chance that there would be a price for violating the power of karma. If he stubbornly ate Harrison, the price would most likely be this ferocious person called Black Star coming to kill him. At this moment, a black substance suddenly fell from the black fog and floated in front of the realmless king. It contained the emergency message from Bobanica before he was captured, showing the image of Han Zhao releasing energy to open the Black Sea. Oh, he came so quickly. It seems like this useless Bobanica won't be able to escape from his grasp and will give out my coordinates. This is good too. I'll wait for him to come and find me. Seeing this, the realmless king moved his body and changed into a comfortable position, waiting for Han Zhao to come. Black Star was very strong and might have the ability to threaten his life, but the realmless king did not panic at all. In terms of secondary dimension exploration, the World Tree was far ahead of the three universal civilizations. Although the realmless king did not have any interactions with the World Tree civilization, he knew how to send messages to the World Tree blessed race. The information he obtained from the memories of this expedition team included the coordinates of the secondary dimensions of the three universal civilizations and various other information. This was the best leverage, and he believed that the World Tree would be happy to accept this gift. However, the realmless king had no intention of leaking the information. After all, he did not want to have too much contact with the World Tree. In comparison, he was more interested in Black Star, a guest from a new universal civilization. Chapter 1386. The flowing light particles formed an endless shuttling channel in front of him, extending infinitely. There was only a light spot at the end. Time and space were pulled into an infinitely long line in his senses. He did not know how much distance had been crossed, nor did he know how much time had passed, but it also felt like only a moment had passed. Countless bizarre scenes flashed past outside the tunnel. Their bodies floated as if they had turned into a puff of smoke. For a moment, they could not feel their bodies. All the senses they used to explore the world were messed up, but in the next moment, all their senses returned to normal. Their vision suddenly changed, and they were already here. He had arrived at a new space. Endless black fog filled this place, and red lightning occasionally flashed in it. It was like a storm cloud brewing lightning, but also like a volcanic eruption. It was a doomsday-like scene. A black mountain range, flowing with lava-like scarlet light, floated in the middle of the black fog like a rootless floating island. The peak in the center was steep and tall. A rusty, dark golden chain wrapped around it, forming a spiral pattern, connecting it to a platform that looked like a black crystal floating in the air. On the platform sat a black figure as huge as a mountain. Countless red eyes turned in unison, looking down at them. Oh, this kind of scene is probably going to drop my SAN value. Han Xiao took a look and smacked his lips. He admired the scenery of this secondary dimension with interest and took a photo as a souvenir. Otherwise, if they fought later, he might accidentally crush this place. Looking up at the mountain-like figure, Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. "You're the Realmless King?" It had to be said that this guy's appearance was quite frightening. At first glance, ordinary people would probably be shocked to the point of losing their minds and triggering a deep-rooted fear of giant creatures. However, Han Xiao was used to seeing big waves, so this kind of scene did not have any impact on him at all. The shock was far inferior to the fleet volley during the interception battle. "Yes, I was waiting for you, Black Star," the Realmless King slowly replied. "You know me?" Han Xiao was a little surprised. He looked down at the bobanica in his hand and remembered that he had not reported his name. Could it be that my name has already spread from the main universe to the depths of the secondary dimensions? How could he be so impressive? "I know why you're here. You want to take away this fleet and this intelligent creature called Harrison, right? I learned about the situation of your civilization from their memories." The Realmless King sat still, but a black fog in the sky suddenly moved away, revealing a fleet. It was the missing expedition team of the 3 universal civilizations. However, it was only shown for a moment before the black fog covered it again, making it impossible to sense it. The unconscious Harrison flew up from the platform and hovered in front of it. Han Zhao's eyes flashed, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. He asked curiously, "So that's how it is. Then why are you waiting for me here?" The Realmless King did not answer immediately. He said slowly, "I usually digest the prey I catch immediately, but I learned your name from their memories. To be honest, I'm very afraid of high-level life forms like you from the main material universe. Because of your existence, I didn't eat them immediately." "You're quite calm." Han Xiao sized up the Realmless King and was a little surprised. "Your cowardice saved you, baby. Just because you knew about my backer from the memories of Harrison and the others, you didn't dare to attack the expedition team. It seems like I'm still very intimidating." Seeing that the other party was giving him face, Han Zhao's expression softened a little. He stretched out his hand and smiled. "In that case, I don't mind making friends with you. Let him go first." The Realmless King shook his head. "I didn't say I would return him to you." Hearing this, Han Xiao paused. "You don't want to provoke me, and you don't want to return him. So what do you want to do?" "I want to make a deal with you." "A deal? Although you didn't eat these people, you were the one who captured them. I don't owe you any favors, and you want to use these people as bargaining chips? I think it's very difficult." Han Xiao stood with his arms crossed and replied casually. The Realmless King slowly said, "No, my bargaining chip is the information about the 3 universal civilizations in their memories. You guys are fighting the World Tree, and I believe the World Tree will definitely like this information. I can follow the clues to your secondary dimension territory, and I happen to have a way to contact the World Tree's blessed race." This news was unexpected. Han Zhao's eyes narrowed, and he immediately put down his hands. His smile disappeared, and his face became expressionless. "Threatening me? Are you tired of living?" "It's not a threat. It's just self-defense. Even if you agree to the deal with me, I'm afraid that after I return him to you, you will take revenge on me. I don't have the confidence to win against you. With this trump card, I believe my safety will be guaranteed. This is the basis of the deal." The Realmless King's tone was matter-of-fact. "You said you can contact the World Tree's blessed race. How can I believe you? You want to scare me with just a few words? It's not that I don't dare to bet. You got the nouns from their memories. Show me the evidence." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. The Realmless King did not mind and explained, "I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean, but I'm not lying to you. Although you and the World Tree are fighting in the main material universe, the secondary dimensions are actually their base camp. They have devoured one secondary dimension after another for countless years. However, the secondary dimensions are endless, and the World Tree does not eat every single one it sees. The main method of expansion is to take root and imprint their mark on the secondary dimensions, turning them into territories and opening up the authority to travel quickly. They will not even interfere with some special secondary dimensions and mainly observe and study them. At the same time, they sent out countless blessed race members to explore the outside world, spreading the name of the World Tree and communication channels. It's similar to what they did in the main material universe. One of the exploration teams passed by my peripheral territory, and one of my guardians learned a lot of information and reported it to me." As he spoke, the Realmless King shared a small portion of his memories through mental communication. Han Xiao checked it and found that there were no signs of forgery. He did have the contact information of the World Tree's blessed race, and he felt a headache. "This is a little troublesome. If we kill this guy, there's no 100% chance of preventing the information from leaking out. If the World Tree opens the secondary dimension battlefront, our situation will become even worse." Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he quickly calculated in his mind. The World Tree's main body was rooted in the secondary dimension, and this was its territory. Although he had found the location of its main body in his previous life, if not for the multidimensional sky opening transportation device landing in the hinterland and launching a surprise attack, it would have been almost impossible for him to pass through the secondary dimension defense circle near the World Tree's main body. The three universal civilizations were still in a good situation. One of the main reasons was that the World Tree did not have the time to figure out the secondary dimension territory of the three universal civilizations like in his previous life. It did not open this battlefront, so the pressure was reduced a lot. Seeing Han Zhao's expression change and killing intent appear, the Realmless King spoke again. "You don't have to worry about me using this to blackmail you. With the abilities of high-level life forms like you, even if your civilization is destroyed, there's a high chance that you can escape. At that time, this trump card won't be able to continue protecting me. So, you can rest assured that I only want to make a deal with you. I won't force you to do anything excessive. As long as you don't attack me, there's no need for me to expose you. Trust me, no one is willing to take the initiative to deal with the World Tree." The Realmless King's tone was sincere. Although he had something on him, he did not dare to ask for anything too excessive. He did not feel that this trump card could support him in doing whatever he wanted in front of the other party. In his opinion, he had only obtained a right to make a deal with the other party. Han Xiao stroked his chin and looked at the Realmless King thoughtfully. This Realmless King was a powerful dimensional god entity, and his name was very intimidating. However, he had always maintained a low profile in front of him. Although he had something on him, he was not tough. Instead, he was a little cowardly. Han Xiao pondered for a few seconds and temporarily suppressed his hostility. "Tell me about your deal. What do you want me to do for you?" "There are only two things. One is that after the battle breaks out, allow me to project my power and harvest the souls of some of the dead on the battlefield, as well as some damaged battleship wreckage. The materials of the main universe are quite valuable to us. Are you trying to snatch business from the underworld? Furthermore, you're also collecting battleship wreckage. Are you an interstellar recycler?" Han Zhao's expression became strange. He glanced at the slowly flowing black fog around him and felt that the impression of the Realmless King had suddenly become that of the garbage station master. He instantly lost his cool. "What about the second thing? I once had a special secondary dimension, but it was snatched away by another group of dimensional entities. They're very difficult to deal with, and I haven't been able to deal with them. I hope you can help me get it back." Han Xiao smacked his lips and said, I'm not sure. I can help you with these two things, but since you said that the method of snitching is to protect yourself and not to threaten me, then I won't use it as a bargaining chip. Also, the price you offered is not suitable. I need more. What do you want? The Realmless King did not refuse to bargain. I need more information about the World Tree in the secondary dimension. Tell me everything you know. Also, I want some of that black substance for research. Finally, maybe we can work together to deal with the World Tree. They've been expanding in the secondary dimension and will reach your territory sooner or later. It's best to strike first, Han Xiao said slowly. I can agree to the first 2 points. As for dealing with the World Tree, forget it. I can't afford to offend them either. I'll just hide. As expected, the Realmless King rejected him. Han Xiao smiled. Don't be too afraid. The World Tree has the weakness of its main body. As long as its main body is destroyed, your threat will be removed once and for all. Isn't that good? Furthermore, it might even release a large number of souls as your food. Although Harrison and the others have been captured, causing the hidden danger of intelligence leakage. With Harrison's luck, he might be able to turn bad luck into good luck. On the bright side, this was also a chance to find out about the World Tree's forces in the secondary dimension from someone who knew about it. Therefore, he did not attack. Instead, he was trying to see if he could pull in a new foreign aid. After all, he was once the successor of socialism, and it had become a habit to unite all the forces that could be united. It sounds very tempting, but I'm not sure if the main body really exists. Let's talk when you find it. The Realmless King did not comment. Seeing this, Han Xiao did not force him. He knew that the other party would not agree so easily, so he changed the topic. At this moment, the interface suddenly moved, and a notification popped up. You have triggered the mission, Realmless King's deal. Mission introduction. For some reason, the Realmless King has something to ask of you and proposed a deal. Mission requirements. Take back the target's secondary dimension. Reward. 2,500,000,000 EXP, plus 25 Realmless King favorability, 1 character summon card. Note, this mission may cause unknown effects. Please accept it with caution. Han Xiaoxin was curious. What kind of secondary dimension was worth the Realmless King taking the risk of offending him to snatch it back? Could this be his wife? Chapter 1387. As if seeing Han Zhao's confusion, the Realmless King explained in a deep voice, One of my babies is pregnant. This secondary dimension is pregnant with one of my children. It is rather special. When it was taken away, it was still an embryo and has yet to take shape. The dimensional entities that took it away intend to eat it after it matures. So I hope that you can take it back under the premise of protecting that secondary dimension from shattering. So it's not your old. Cough, I'll try my best. Han Xiao coughed and asked, By the way, what are the origins of those dimensional entities? The Realmless King changed his sitting posture and said slowly, They're external entities. They are external dimensional entities. I was born in this region, and this is my territory. Originally, I was the only Overlord-level life form here, and I had no natural enemies or competitors. However, ever since those dimensional entities arrived here from the space storm, my situation changed. They set their sights on me and settled down at the edge of my territory. I tried many times to chase them away, but failed. However, they couldn't do anything to me. With the Realmless King's explanation, Han Xiao quickly understood the situation. The secondary dimension world had an independent ecological model. Due to the unpredictability of space, the division of regions was usually based on certain special secondary dimensions or overlord life forms. For example, the territory controlled by the Realmless King was a representative, stable region. The regions outside these regions were like the desolate universe belt of the main universe, but they were not desolate. Instead, they were filled with the unknown. This was like a group of heroes, but the area was too vast and the borders were unknown. Most of the stable regions did not know of each other's existence, nor did they want to be discovered by outsiders. After all, the environment here was more dangerous, and it was difficult to nurture civilization. The life forms that were born were more particular about the law of the jungle, where the strong preyed on the weak. However, or it would also be born from chaos. A small number of stable districts would communicate with each other. Due to different reasons, their names would spread out and connect with other stable districts. It was just like how primitive tribes in the Age of Desolation would discover each other, forming a new ecology of complex factions. The Realmless King was a member of a composite ecosystem. He knew the coordinates of several stable regions and had always been safe. To put it simply, the situation that the Realmless King encountered was like a local tyrant meeting a local tyrant. The secondary dimension was so big, but the other party refused to leave no matter what, and even had designs on him. Thus, there was a neighbor dispute. Han Shao obtained the information of these few-dimensional entities from the spiritual information shared by the other party. They were all summaries of the Realmless King's experience in fighting them over the years, displaying their various abilities. However, this information only had a little reference value to him. As long as they really fought, he would be able to obtain more detailed information through the combat information on the interface. Han Shao did not take the Realmless King's exaggerated description of the enemy because of his past impression to heart. Although the secondary dimensions were bizarre, as long as no one reached a higher grade, the peak beyond grade, as of the main universe, were still the absolute predators at the top of the food chain. No matter how famous the dimensional gods were here, they would not be able to show off in front of him. I understand the situation. Send a projectile to go with me. Han Zhao's tone was casual. With a sway of his body, a lord's avatar separated from his body. Surging mechanical force surged out of his body and poured into the lord's avatar, activating the lord's descent state. He did not plan to leave this place. His main body would stay behind to keep an eye on the Realmless King in case he did anything. Sending the lord's avatar was enough to resolve this mission. All right, if you don't mind, I hope to let him temporarily inherit my power. It will only be beneficial to him. Take it as a small apology. The Realmless King raised an arm and waved it. Harrison spun and landed in front of Han Shao. His eyelids trembled, and he slowly opened his eyes. He looked like he had just woken up from a coma. As soon as he saw Han Shao, Harrison's eyes quickly focused. He slowly recalled what happened before he fainted, and his face trembled in disbelief. Your Excellency, Black Star, I'm still alive. Han Shao pressed down on Harrison's shoulder, and electric sparks appeared on his fingertips. He then looked at the interface and retracted his hand. He nodded calmly and said, "Your vital signs are all normal. It's good that you're fine. I still remember that the fleet was attacked. Did you come to save me?" Harrison was touched. He still remembered the last memory before he fainted. The overwhelming black tide swallowed the entire fleet, and the fleet did not resist at all. He did not have time to do anything. At that moment, he thought that he was finished. Jenny's beautiful face and shiny forehead flashed across his mind, and his heart was filled with reluctance and despair. Now that he woke up and saw Han Shao, Harrison's uneasy heart calmed down. His fear, panic, nervousness, and other emotions disappeared instantly. He knew that Black Star's arrival meant that he was fine. Before he could ask for the reason, Harrison felt his body turn around involuntarily. At the same time, a mental message sounded in his mind. "Kid, I'm the Realmless King. Relax your body and mind and accept my infusion." As soon as he turned around, Harrison saw the strange scene of this dimension and the terrifying body of the Realmless Lord. An instinctive fear rose from the depths of his soul, like a chill spreading in his bone marrow, instantly freezing his body. However, this feeling disappeared in the blink of an eye. If he was alone, Harrison felt that he might have gone crazy from fear. However, when he thought about how Black Star, this father-level universe powerhouse, was standing behind him, an incomparable sense of security immediately dispelled all the fear in his heart. Without any fear, the explorer's soul was immediately ignited. Harrison looked at the Realmless King, and his tone unknowingly became filled with curiosity. "Your Excellency Black Star, what is this thing?" "He's not a thing. He's called the Realmless King, a life form from the secondary dimension. He's a waste collector." Han Shao replied casually. Then, he patted Harrison's shoulder and said, "Listen to him. Relax and let it enter your body. It won't hurt." As soon as he said that, the realmless king blinked his eyes at the same time. Then, the black fog around him seemed to be pulled and surged toward Harrison, who was at a loss, and entered his body. Very soon, black and red slender lines appeared on the surface of his body like protruding blood vessels, but they were in a mess and were still twisting irregularly. However, Harrison did not feel any pain. He only felt his body heat up. In a place where he could not see, every cell in his body was being cleansed by the black fog-like energy, undergoing a benign mutation in the direction of optimization. Although he was still a low-level super, his basic physical fitness was rapidly increasing. After a long while, the black and red lines on Harrison's body converged on his chest and turned into a mark. This represented the contract formed by the Realmless King. With it, one could borrow the Realmless King's power in most environments. Dimensional deities like this could project their power to life forms through contracts. This was also the main method they used to enter the main material universe. Some of the religious sects in the galaxy had connections with the dimensional deities, and the mark of the underworld on Han Zhao's body was similar. The amount of power borrowed depended on the contractor's individual strength on one hand, and, on the other hand, it depended on the level of the contract. On account of Han Zhao, the Realmless King had concluded a contract of the highest level. In a critical moment, the Realmless King could even temporarily take over and provide a grandpa substitute service. It was all thanks to him that Harrison was able to enjoy such treatment. F***CK, the advanced luck glow is really. Han Zhao gritted his teeth in envy. With his current level, he was already the source of luck for the owner of the luck glow. Because of his existence, Harrison was able to turn this danger into a fortuitous encounter. If I could have met a backer like myself when I was weak, that would have been awesome. Unfortunately, I've already reached my current height, and not many people are qualified to be relied on by me. Han Xiaoxin sighed. At this moment, Harrison's eyes had already turned pure black. The Realmless King took over his body and nodded. "I'm ready. Shall we set off now?" Han Xiao nodded. He controlled the Lord's avatar to take out the dimension travel vehicle and brought Harrison along. With a flash of light, they disappeared. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something and took out the container that held Bobanica. "By the way, I caught this guy and forgot to return it to you." The Realmless King glanced at the container with a human-like look of disdain in his eyes. "Keep it. Release it after you're done." Han Xiao pursed his lips and put away the container. It seemed like this ball of liquid was indeed bragging when he said that he was the Realmless King's confidant. The Lord's avatar needed to travel for a while. Han Xiao rose and sat cross-legged in midair, floating at the same height as the Realmless King's head. The two of them stared at each other. The Lord's avatar set the dimensional coordinates provided by the Realmless King, and the vehicle traveled all the way. It did not take long for them to reach their destination. This place was still a black secondary dimension, but unlike the doomsday-like scene at the Realmless King's side, the darkness here gave off a quiet and peaceful aura. Han Xiao could sense that the energy of the entire secondary dimension was flowing to the same location, and, in that direction, there was an incomplete life signal budding. The entire dimension was giving birth to something. This is the place. Those dimensional entities have been entrenched here. Be careful. The Realmless King sent a message through Harrison. Han Xiao nodded. He opened the dimensional army box and summoned the Endless Mech Legion. At the same time, he activated a portion of his soldiers to fuse into a normal version of the mechanical deity and prepared for battle. At this moment, a few powerful energy sources approached from different directions. 3 huge figures that blotted out the sky approached from afar and quickly occupied their line of sight. They had different appearances, and they were the foreign dimensional deities that occupied this place. The moment they appeared, they brought with them a strong sense of oppression. "Who is it? How dare you disturb our F***CK Black Star? We can't beat them. Run." The moment the 3-dimensional entities saw the mechanical deity, they immediately turned around and ran even faster than when they came. Seeing this, Han Xiao and the Realmless King were stunned. He thought that he was going to solve the problem, but he did not expect these dimensional entities to run away like frightened rabbits the moment they saw him. It was as if they really knew him. Could it be that my name has really spread in the secondary dimension world? Han Xiao narrowed his eyes as his thoughts raced. These three-dimensional entities are outsiders. Perhaps they came from somewhere near the surface. Could it be that when I was traveling with Ames a few decades ago, I accidentally beat up some dimensional deities who didn't realize that they were light bulbs, and that's why I became famous? Han Xiao thought about the reason, but his hands were not slow. The Mech Legion immediately chased after them. These three-dimensional entities could not even be dealt with by the Realmless King, and in his hands, it was only a one-sided abuse. Han Xiao originally wanted to kill them, but since the other party knew him, he controlled his strength slightly and left them alive. After a violent beating, the three-dimensional entities sat in a row in front of him with bruises all over their faces. The Realmless King's face twitched. The situation was different from what he had imagined. The powerful outsider that he could not chase away no matter how hard he tried was so cowardly that he ran away the moment he met Black Star. He could not even escape and was caught and beaten up. This made him feel a little disillusioned. Seeing Black Star make a move with his own eyes, the Realmless King was afraid, but at the same time, he was glad that he did not use force. The top experts of the main material universe were indeed not to be trifled with. While he was thinking, Han Xiao stood with his arms crossed, interrogating the three-dimensional entities curiously. Where have the three of you heard of my name? We've seen you kill dimensional deities, the three-dimensional deities, who were strong enough to dominate a region in the secondary dimension world, became extremely docile and told him everything. Han Xiao only realized that there was a reason why the three of them had come to the Realmless King's territory. These three-dimensional deities were originally stationed near the secondary dimension shallow layer, controlled by the three universal civilizations. Because there was a universal civilization expanding there, the three of them had long planned to migrate. A few decades ago, when he and Ames were traveling, they passed by that area and beat up another dimensional deity. The three of them saw the tragic scene and were afraid, so they made up their minds to migrate and enter the depths of the secondary dimension. In the end, they came to the territory of the Realmless King many years ago. It was not easy for them to meet a lone deity, so they planned to eat the Realmless King before continuing forward. However, the three of them did not expect that they would not be able to defeat the other party. They wanted to leave, but they coincidentally discovered this secondary dimension with a special embryo. They instinctively felt that eating this life would be beneficial to them, so they stayed. It's such a bad timing for this to happen. The corner of Han Xiao's mouth twitched, and he did not know what to say. If this mission was done by anyone else, the difficulty would be in line with the high reward. Ordinary beyond grade, as would basically be given nothing in front of the three-dimensional entities. However, if it was him, he would not even need to make a move. This was how convenient it was to have high reputation. We told you everything we know. Can you let us go? A dimensional entity said carefully. Don't even think about it. Han Xiao rejected without hesitation. At this moment, the Realmless King could not help but say, Black Star, this secondary dimension has been taken back. I'll occupy this place again first. As he spoke, a black liquid substance emerged from his body, wanting to fill up this dimension and return it to his territory. Han Xiao was about to agree when he suddenly paused and changed his mind. Don't be in such a hurry. I want to see what the embryo looks like first. My child hasn't formed yet. Is there a need for that? This is the first time I've seen such a phenomenon. I'm curious. Han Xiao replied casually before turning around and flying toward the breeding ground. The Realmless King had no choice but to follow behind. After advancing for a distance, Han Xiao saw a grayish-white sphere floating in the center of the secondary dimension. It was like a fog that was condensed together and then wrapped in a translucent membrane. Waves of energy surged in from all directions, nourishing this embryo. In his perception, This embryo had an incomparably exuberant life force, as dazzling as dozens of stars. Han Xiao took a closer look and saw that in the gray fog flowing in the membrane, there seemed to be a long figure flashing past like a dragon. The realmless king followed and said helplessly, "It's not born yet. What's there to see?" Han Xiao ignored him and stroked the embryo. He realized that although the membrane was very thin, it was very tough. At this moment, an item introduction popped up on the interface. Han Xiao glanced at it and paused. Then, he slowly turned to look at the realmless king with a faint smile. "You said this is your child? What's wrong?" The realmless king met Han Xiao's gaze and suddenly felt a little guilty. Bullsh asterisk T. No wonder you took the risk to force me to help you snatch it back. So it's such a strange item. Are you betting that I won't discover the wonders of this thing? Han Xiao flicked the embryo with his finger, his teasing tone containing uncontrollable surprise as he grinned. It's 90% true and 1% false, right? I was almost fooled by you. Chapter 1388. You've misunderstood. This is my child. It's just that there are some mutations. The realmless king pretended to be calm. Keep pretending, keep pretending. Han Xiaoxin snorted and ignored him. He turned to look at the item introduction on the interface. Pivotal snake egg. Pivotal snake, also known as the world-swallowing snake, is a rare species that lives in spatial turbulence. It is an extremely rare creature that lives alone and feeds on secondary dimensions and special information for phenomena. Every world-swallowing snake will only lay eggs 7 times in its life. After giving birth, it will abandon it in the space storm and allow the eggs to drift. When it encounters a secondary dimension, it will automatically parasitize and transform into an embryo state. It will absorb multiple secondary dimensions until it is completely mature. At the same time, the pivotal snake egg has an extremely strong attraction to some secondary dimension life forms. It is very beneficial for the larvae to eat it, and there's a certain chance of strengthening their innate abilities and increasing their life level. Note, the origin of this species is closely related to the world tree. It can eat the world tree's main body and has a certain degree of restraining effect. The item introduction was not long, but the information revealed shocked Han Xiao. The pivotal snake was like the space lice back then. It was not in the database of the 3 universal civilizations, and it had never been discovered in his previous life. It was also an unfamiliar species to him. What surprised Han Xiao the most was that this creature was actually related to the world tree. The item introduction even specifically stated that it was the nemesis of the world tree to a certain extent, which surprised him. The world tree was a space wonder with a unique nature, but there just happened to be a creature that could restrain it. Could it be that everything had a weakness? Perhaps the pivotal snake was a companion species of the world tree in a sense, specially born to restrain it. If he thought deeper, what was the cause of the world tree? All of a sudden, all sorts of guesses flashed through Han Zhao's mind, but he had no idea. However, there was one thing he could confirm. If not for the item introduction on the interface, he definitely would not have been able to discover the uniqueness of this embryo. Furthermore, the realmless king claimed that this was its child, so it was not easy for him to study it further. It would be difficult for him to discover anything strange. In the end, he would most likely be fooled by the realmless king, which was probably what the realmless king planned. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind. Han Xiao raised his hand and pressed on the realmless king's shoulder. Do you really think I don't know what's good for me? This can't be your child. You made up such a lie to me because you were worried that I would be tempted by this thing? Our deal requires honesty. My impression of you is still all right, so I'll give you a chance to be honest. If you still lie to me, then don't blame me for holding a grudge. No matter how my civilization fights with the world tree in the future, I'll guarantee that you'll definitely die. The realmless king's face twitched. Although he had something on him, it couldn't protect him forever. Facing Han Zhao's threat, he was still very weak. His original intention of lying was to not let Black Star investigate further to prevent any complications. After all, as long as one came to this secondary dimension, They would be able to feel some kind of life being nurtured, and it was easy for people to be curious. Furthermore, the embryo had a special attraction to the dimensional gods. If he did not claim to have a special relationship with him, he was worried that Black Star would be tempted. He had originally thought that Black Star was a guest from the main universe and might not be able to feel the attraction of the embryo. As long as he did not study it, he would not be able to discover anything strange and could deceive everyone. However, he did not expect Black Star to see through at a glance, causing his plan to fail. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that the other party was lying to him, but the other party had already threatened him, so the Realmless King was not confident. After hesitating for a while, the Realmless King said helplessly, "If you know what this is, why are you asking me? I just want to hear it from you." Han Xiao stood with his arms crossed. He was mainly curious about how much the Realmless King knew about the pivotal snake egg. If he was only tempted by this special attraction shown in the item's introduction, then the Realmless King's goal should be to wait for the embryo to mature and eat it. However, if he knew the origin of the pivotal snake, then the Realmless King's actions would be a little subtle. However, in his opinion, the Realmless King most likely did not know about the relationship between the pivotal snake and the world tree. He might not even know about the pivotal snake. If not for the note in the item's introduction, he would not have known about this secret. In the secondary dimension world where information was difficult to spread, it was unlikely that the Realmless King would know about such a well-hidden secret. As expected, the Realmless King's answer was roughly the same as Han Zhao's guess. He said that he had discovered this embryo when he was expanding his territory and felt the attraction, so he brought it back to wait for it to mature. However, it was snatched away. After explaining, the Realmless King even asked Han Xiao if he knew the origin of the embryo. "Of course I know, but the information is incomplete. I only saw it once when I was traveling in the secondary dimension. Unfortunately, it disappeared." Han Xiao waved his hand and found an excuse. He naturally would not reveal the information about the pivotal snake to the Realmless King. As for whether the other party was pretending not to know it, he could only observe. "All right, then what do you plan to do with this embryo?" "Our deal," the Realmless King probed. "TSK, you're hiding something from me. Logically speaking, the deal should be canceled. However, seeing that your attitude is not bad, the deal can continue. This embryo is still yours." Without waiting for the Realmless King to heave a sigh of relief, Han Xiao paused and continued. "However, the deal is only to help you take back the embryo. Although the embryo is in your hands, you can't eat it. I'll have a mechanical army stationed here. I'm very interested in this embryo. I want to see what it looks like when it matures." Hearing this, the Realmless King had no choice but to agree. On the bright side, at least Black Star had dealt with 3 evil neighbors, so it was not a loss. After reaching a consensus, Han Xiao had the mechanical army build a temporary base around the embryo, and the Realmless King could only let him do as he pleased. At the same time, a notification popped up on Han Zhao's interface that the mission was completed. He received a large amount of experience, but the Realmless King's favorability reward had shrunk, only increasing by 5 points. Obviously, it was affected by his actions. Only by completely returning the embryo would he be able to obtain the most favorability. However, this bit of favorability was not important to him. The rewarded character summon card was the ability of the Realmless King. Its effect was to descend from a dimension in the main universe, project the power of the Realmless King, and summon the black liquid substance that could block energy perception. It was temporarily kept by Han Xiao. At the same time, in the Realmless King dimension, Han Zhao's main body, who was monitoring the Realmless King, broke the silence. "It's done. I'll take these 3-dimensional entities away and won't disturb you anymore. It's your turn to fulfill your promise. I want all the information you know about the world tree." Okay. The Realmless King could only do as he was told and share this portion of his memories through mental information. Han Xiao immediately transcoded these mental memories into virtual data and entered it into the device. With this information, the expedition team of the 3 universal civilizations did not have to explore like headless flies. They could save a lot of energy and directly head towards the World Tree's territory in the secondary dimensions. Although the closer they were to the territory of the World Tree Blessed race, the more dangerous it would be. The chances of finding the World Tree's main body would also increase. The Realmless King also gave them the coordinates of a few stable areas and a portion of the map. The three universal civilizations were no longer clueless about this deep area, and the information was quite valuable. Han Xiao browsed through the information and suddenly said, "I want to cooperate with the Three Universal Civilizations Alliance. I would like to represent the three universal civilizations and reach an agreement with you. You control a large area of secondary dimensions, so I hope that you can lend a portion of your territory as a temporary outpost for the three universal civilizations to explore the secondary dimensions. This will allow our expedition team to gather and rest here. This will be of great help to us. What do you think?" Hearing this, the Realmless King was annoyed. He felt that the other party was taking advantage of him and could not help but warn him. "I don't want to be involved in your war. Don't forget that I still have something on you. It's fine. We'll be stationed here temporarily so we can give you more information. Furthermore, we're already here. Even if you don't welcome us, our large-scale follow-up troops will definitely pass by here. You might as well cooperate with us and get additional benefits." Han Xiao did not think much of it. If he obtained the support of the Realmless King, he would be able to obtain the coordinates of the edge of the Realmless King's territory and travel there in an instant, saving the time needed to slowly cross this area. Setting up a transit station in this deep area was equivalent to obtaining a new entrance. Like a record point, the expedition team could set off directly from here as soon as they entered, saving them a lot of time. It was very helpful to the expedition. The Realmless King's heart was uncertain. After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, he finally nodded helplessly. Even though he had something on him, he did not dare to use it easily because he was worried about the consequences. Instead, Black Star had taken the initiative. Although Black Star had helped him chase away his evil neighbor, this was undoubtedly asking a tiger for its skin. The Realmless King was already regretting inviting a wolf into his house. It's all Bobanika's fault for provoking such a troublesome fellow. He still dares to boast that he's my confidant? He's more like a huge threat. Buzz. Just as the Realmless King was getting angry, Harrison returned to his main body on a carrier. He had already exited the "please possess me" state and regained control of his body. Han Xiao released his magnetic force and pulled Harrison in front of him. He handed the equipment with the information recorded in his hand to him and instructed, "The matter is basically settled. I've reached a deal with the Realmless King. He's willing to lend some secondary dimensions to us as our outpost. He'll release the expedition team later. Report the situation to the commander and give this information to him. Tell them to stop advancing and wait for orders here. Wait for me to go back and inform the three universal civilizations." "Understood. I promise to complete the mission." Harrison nodded his head and committed everything to memory. Seeing how obedient he was, Han Xiaoxin had mixed feelings. Although Harrison and the others had suffered this time, they had also benefited from this disaster. They had made substantial progress in the plan to search for the World Tree's main body and found a temporary ally in the depths of the secondary dimensions. What surprised Han Xiao the most was that Harrison had set off to search for the World Tree's main body. Now that he had no idea where the main body was, he had already found a strange object that could restrain the main body. What else could he say? The luck glow was always godly. Letting Harrison join the expedition team was indeed the right decision. Han Xiao was relieved. If the Realmless King had not found his backer from Harrison's memories, this expedition team would have been gone. In his previous life, perhaps because of the difference in the timeline, the Realmless King had already eaten the pivotal snake embryo, or perhaps because of other reasons. In short, Han Xiao had never heard of the three universal civilizations obtaining the pivotal snake egg. If he had such a trump card in his previous life, the difficulty of ambushing the main body would have been much lower. However, although obtaining a trump card was worth being happy about, he still had to find the World Tree's main body to be of use. Furthermore, Han Xiao was still very curious about the connection between the pivotal snake and the world tree. In addition, he also wanted to know if the world tree civilization knew about the characteristics of the pivotal snake. He had a feeling that there were many secrets hidden inside. End of chapter. Chapter 1389. You found us a temporary ally in the deeper secondary dimensions and even obtained information about the world tree's sphere of influence? In the meeting room of the three universal civilizations, Bruce, Lewis, and the ethereal Pope could not help but widen their eyes when they heard Han Zhao's notification. If it weren't for Harrison, I definitely wouldn't have gone over. Then, I wouldn't have encountered such a good thing. Han Xiao shrugged. After leaving behind the throne in the Realmless King's dimension, he returned to the main material universe and informed the three universal civilizations immediately, explaining the cause and effect. Considering the Realmless King's attitude, Han Xiao only hid the information about the pivotal snake egg. Before this trump card matured, there was no need to inform the three universal civilizations to prevent any complications. After hearing the reason, the three of them looked at each other in surprise and joy. Bruce cleared his throat and said with a deep voice, "Thank you for your hard work. This is an important discovery of the expedition plan. Our next search operation will be more targeted. We have agreed to this alliance. We will send some special envoys to contact the Realmless King and discuss the future cooperation." Although Han Xiao did not report beforehand and made the decision on behalf of the three universal civilizations, this was a special period. As long as it was useful for the battle, this was a small matter. Han Xiao nodded and took out a list of secondary dimension coordinates. These are the secondary dimension coordinates that the Realmless King lent us as a transit outpost. We can build a new portal here and turn this area into a shallow layer. You know what to do after that. Just show your gangster side, but don't push the Realmless King too hard. What are you saying? Bruce's face twitched. He helplessly took the list and showed it to the other two leaders. All right, that's all I want to say. If there's no other problem, I'll go back and take charge of the training. Han Xiao waved his hand. Wait, there's something else I want to discuss with you. This time, Lewis stopped Han Xiao with a rare smile on his face, and he slowly said, "The Beyond Grade as have sacrificed their blood and sweat for the war. After a discussion between the three parties, we have unanimously decided to set up a soul comfort monument for all the Beyond Grade as who died in the war. It has nothing to do with identity, only merit." Han Zhao's eyes flickered, and he said with relief, "It's not easy. You guys finally said something reasonable." Lewis's smile froze, and he chuckled dryly. He pretended not to hear this and asked, Hee hee, what do you think of this plan?" "Very good. I have no objections." Han Xiao shook his head. During the interception of the battle, no one would be affected. At least, the Soul Comfort Monument would not let them die silently. Compared to the damage of the internet, the Soul Comfort Monument, at least of course, the souls of souls, compared to the damage of the battle of the war, of the soul, of the civilization of their of life. However, under the premise of the Sanctum Revival, the effect of the Soul Comfort Monument would probably be different from what they had expected. The three universal civilizations still did not believe that there would be no limit to the revival. In Han Zhao's opinion, the Soul Comfort Monument would probably become a battle record ranking that recorded the number of deaths of the various Beyond Grade as. This would deviate from his original intention, but at least it was better than nothing. Since you have no objections, please convey our intentions to all the association members. Let everyone know that, despite the fact that it's a transaction, we're also humane and grateful for their help. No matter what grudges we had in the past, we're still compatriots born in the same universe." The ethereal Pope nodded. "Did the three of you take the wrong medicine today? Why are you speaking like that?" Han Xiao looked at the three of them with surprise. Bruce said with annoyance, "All right, that's all. Go." Han Xiao shrugged, deactivated the remote projection, and disappeared in front of the three of them. Seeing this, Lewis relaxed, shook his head, and sighed. Blackstar always brings us surprises. If it weren't for him saving Harrison, we would have missed this secondary dimension intelligence. Black Star's luck is unbelievable. Luckily, he's our teammate now. Bruce sighed. The three of them sighed for a while before lowering their heads again and carefully studying the information Han Xiao had brought back. It did not take much time to deal with Harrison's matter. The follow-up matters of the Alliance were handed over to the three universal civilizations, so Han Xiao did not have to worry too much. After returning to the training base, Han Xiao sent a message to inform them of the Soul Comfort Monument plan. Naturally, no one had any objections. Although the original intention of the two sides joining hands was to make a deal, the Beyond Grade as did not want their contributions to be ignored. It was naturally great that the three universal civilizations were willing to help them increase their reputation. However, this move seemed to be maintaining their sense of belonging to the galactic society, so the Beyond Grade as were not affected. Han Xiao checked the training of the Calamity Grades and Beyond Grade as usual. He then went to a mental strength training room and found Fu Ding, who was training his psychic energy. A song that directly played in the soul echoed in the room with psychic energy. Unlike pure psychic energy or mental explosion, this kind of psychic energy song was not stimulating at all. It made one immersed in it like the chirping of birds in spring, full of vitality and soothing the soul. However, the next moment, like a calm sea, it suddenly became violent. The general psychic energy song suddenly became high-pitched and sharp, like country music suddenly turning into heavy metal. It wanted to tear the soul of life into pieces and throw it into the furnace to be completely destroyed. The simulated puppets in the training room had their heads blown up at the same time, falling to the ground and twitching. Han Xiao watched from outside for a while before walking into the room. The psychic energy song immediately attacked him like a tide. The demonic sound entered his brain and made his ears ring. However, it was all blocked by his tough mental barrier and did not cause any substantial damage. Sensing that an outsider had entered, Fu Ding withdrew his psychic power and slowly opened his eyes. He smiled and teased. He smiled and said, "Your Excellency Black Star, why are you here? Are you lacking luck again? I'm here to give you some special treatment." Han Xiao chuckled, looked at the information on the interface, and nodded. "You're someone with talent. I can feel from your psychic energy that you've already touched the boundary of Beyond Grade. It's just that I don't know how long it'll take for the final sublimation to be completed." Fu Ding did not deny it and shook his head gently. He had stayed in the Calamity Grade for a long time and accumulated a lot of experience. He had already touched the threshold of Beyond Grade A, but he had not taken the final step. In the beginning, he had inherited Chun Xing's psychic skills, and now he had walked his own path. He spent a lot of time summarizing his skills and trying to create a new path. He could feel that when his self-created path was completely formed, he would be able to enter the final sublimation and enter the Beyond Grade A. In this regard, the Soul Swapper had helped him a lot. This universal treasure also had the effect of assisting him in his training, making it convenient for him to study the structure of different souls. From there, he could develop various self-created psychic attacks and perfect his own style. Among the 5 major classes, other than the Esper class, the other 4 were groups of 2. The Mage and Mechanic classes focused on erudition and needed to learn all kinds of knowledge, while the Pugilist and Psychic classes focused on pure knowledge. Pugilists developed their physical strength and created countless martial arts schools. Psychics developed their soul and spirit, and, similarly, they created many skill systems. Psychic attacks and close combat skills also had countless force exertion techniques. The main ones were the mental, psychic, sensory, potential, and many other major branches. Under each branch, there were also various schools. Just like martial arts schools, there were hundreds of different schools. For example, Kasui was most proficient in the psychic class, while Fu Ding was proficient in the mental class. It was rare to see Fu Ding use violent psychic energy. Most of the time, Fu Ding's psychic song was from this branch. Don't worry, you'll complete the transformation to Beyond Grade very soon. Han Xiao patted Fu Ding's shoulder. He looked at the combat information and knew that Fu Ding's energy rank was not far from the beyond Grade A realm. I hope I can help you when the time comes. Fu Ding sighed softly. It's only 11 years. Even if I become a beyond Grade A, I won't have enough time to accumulate. I'm afraid I'll only be cannon fodder on a battlefield. You have to have confidence in your luck. Plus, you have a soul swapper. No one will use your basic strength to measure your usefulness. Han Xiao encouraged him. Fu Ding did not have the exaggerated talent of Carrot's everlasting martial path, but he was the only one who was perfectly compatible with the soul swapper. The power of this perverted universal treasure depended on Fu Ding's own strength. Once he entered the beyond Grade A realm, the effect of the soul swapper would change qualitatively. Although the souls of the World Tree experts were sucked by the Mother Tree and could not be completely transferred, he had specially asked Fu Ding to test it in a small-scale battle. The soul swapper could tear apart the souls of the World Tree members and cause heavy damage. If all the souls were pulled out, the enemy would die on the spot. After a while, Han Xiao left the room and changed into the king's suit. He teleported to a secret place in the Black Star Palace. With a turn of his gaze, he arrived outside a potential stimulation training room. It was filled with all kinds of cosmic radiation and enormous pressure. Evans stood in the middle of the room, and a gentle light flowed on the surface of his body. He was using the harsh environment to train himself. Han Xiao opened the door and walked in. The training room immediately stopped operating. Evans sensed something and turned around. "Army Commander, what can I do for you?" Evans nodded in greeting with a calm expression. Han Xiao waved his hand. "There's no need to be so formal. I'm just here to see how your training is going." As he spoke, he sized Evans up and nodded in satisfaction. Han Xiao had been formulating an Esper ability absorption plan for Evans. His genetic chain was very stable, and all his Esper abilities had been carefully selected. It was enough to deal with all kinds of complex situations. Basically, none of the Esper ability slots were wasted, and the combination of skills was countless times better than ES Gods. At the same time, Evans had also absorbed a genetic strengthening ability that increased the speed of his Esper cultivation. Coupled with his top Esper ability affinity physique, his growth speed was extremely gratifying. After many years of hard work, Evans had already reached the level of a high-level calamity grade and was not too far away from beyond Grade A. Han Xiao injected Evans with a needle, looked at the interface, and said with a smile, "You're in the process of transforming, and it won't take long for you to complete the sublimation. I'm afraid I'll have to congratulate you in advance for becoming a beyond Grade A. What are your plans then?" He did not doubt Evans' talent. With Esper ability, copy, and top Esper ability affinity physique, there was almost a 100% chance that he would become a beyond Grade A super. It was only a matter of time. Evans smiled and said, "If not for you, I might still be an ordinary person. You've been funding me to improve my strength for the past few decades, and I owe you too much. If you don't mind, I hope to stay in the army and repay this debt." Han Xiao was very satisfied with this answer. To be honest, he did not really want to let this talent go. Under his correct guidance and the precipitation of the first half of his life, Evans did not fall because of this shortcut Esper ability. Instead, his heart became as firm as a rock, and he always made others worry less. Furthermore, Evans had always been grateful to him for activating his suppressed talent and giving him a new life. His loyalty was probably even higher than Lode Hair's. Han Xiao pressed on Evans' shoulder, smiled, and said, "Become a beyond Grade A as soon as possible. I'll give you a gift then." "What gift?" Evans was curious. "It's a secret. You'll know when the time comes." Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. When Evans became a beyond Grade A, he would be able to absorb Esper abilities of the same level. God, who had been imprisoned in the space-time amber for many years, would have a chance to use it. After many years of observation, he was sure that Evans was qualified to accept this gift. A super high-risk Esper ability like energy control definitely could not be wasted. Letting Evans take this Esper ability was the best way to make use of it. The Esper ability that ES God had spent so much effort to synthesize would become someone else's, and he would also let this evil guy have a taste of being a victim. By then, the reaction of the three universal civilizations would no longer be a problem. Han Xiao planned to tell them everything about what God had done. Regardless of whether the three universal civilizations believed him or not, they would not fall out with him when the enemy attacked. As for God's main body, the underworld would not mind having another strong man. Before God was captured, he thought that the three universal civilizations would release him one day to ask about the world tree. However, from the beginning to the end, Han Xiao did not plan to let this extremely dangerous villain regain his freedom. The frontline troops had always been blocking the world tree's advance, and the three universal civilizations had also begun their destructive development of the periphery of the flickering world. The Galactic Society was in a state of panic, and the training base was in a rare state of peace. The changes in the battle outside did not affect their training plan for the time being. Time passed quickly during the training. Under Han Zhao's training plan, a large number of trainees were overjoyed to feel their improvement. Other than one person, the rest of the trainees trained more diligently. After spending a few months in training, Oathkeeper, who was far away in the Holy Covenant, finally sent a message saying that he had gathered another set of keys to the first sanctum. Han Xiao had been waiting for this moment. Without any delay, he informed everyone and entered the sanctum again. Under the gazes of the Holy Covenant members, he disappeared from the main universe again. Chapter 1390. A few hours after Han Xiao entered the sanctum, the members of the Avoidance faction gathered in the secret meeting room under Dylan's call. Black Star has finally entered the sanctum again. What do you all think? Dylan chewed on a fluorescent grass leaf and gently rubbed his fingers. He scanned the beyond grade as on the table with a scrutinizing gaze. Everyone remained silent and looked at their companions with the same gaze. No one wanted to be the first to speak. Seeing this, Dylan took off the grass leaf in his mouth and tapped his fist on the table twice. Since no one is speaking, let me say it. The last time Black Star went to the sanctum, it took about 2 months. This time, it should be about the same. I think this is a good opportunity to leave. Everyone paused and turned to look at him. Their gazes were unreadable. Dylan did not mind and spread out his hands. Everyone knows me. I've always said what I want to say. The last time Black Star entered the sanctum, I wanted to make this suggestion. However, at that time, I didn't know how long Black Star would disappear for. Furthermore, everyone was observing if the interception circle could really stop the enemy, so I didn't make the suggestion. Now that the battle situation has changed, the enemy has broken through the interception circle and will arrive at the three universal civilizations' territory sooner or later. At the same time, we also understand how long Black Star will be in the sanctum, so this is a chance to leave the main universe and avoid the war. Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. Some were dissatisfied, some were tempted, and some were watching. Don't forget, Black Star revived us. We all owe him a favor. It's not good to leave without saying goodbye, right? Someone frowned and objected. The members of the Avoidance Faction Association present were all revivers of the Holy Covenant. Because they cherished the second life that they had obtained with great difficulty, they did not participate in the war. Because Dylan was good at talking, everyone temporarily let him be the representative. However, he was not their leader, and there were also differences internally. Dylan played with the glowing grass and said calmly, I don't deny that we are indebted to Black Star, but it is impossible for him to allow us to leave freely. The purpose of reviving us is only to make use of our strength. Right now, he tolerates us avoiding the battle, but it is only temporary. As the participants become more and more dissatisfied with us, Black Star will pressure us sooner or later. Just like how he forced the third batch of revivers to participate in the battle, he will do the same to us in the future. Therefore, we might as well leave the main universe before this happens. Otherwise, we will become more and more passive. Although I feel sorry for Black Star, we have to be responsible for our own lives. Even if he revived us, it doesn't mean that we have to accept his orders and sacrifice our lives for him. Everyone frowned and muttered to themselves. These words had also touched the bottom of many people's hearts. Many people didn't dare to disobey Black Star because of their feelings, but in their hearts, they were unwilling to take the risk and participate in the battle. What about the Holy Covenant? Someone asked. Dylan snorted. Oathkeeper and Black Star are on the same side. If we want to leave, we have to do it secretly. We can't inform them. If we do that, I'm afraid we'll be hunted down by Black Star. I don't think we can make such a rash decision, another person said cautiously. Hearing this, Dylan retorted, we only have a chance to sneak away when Black Star is not in the main universe. Every minute and second we waste now is time for us to escape. If we wait for him to return, will we still be able to leave? No matter what you say, I'll definitely leave. Many people looked conflicted. The pressure that Black Star gave them was too strong. Only when he was not around would these people dare to plot, thinking that this period of time was a rare opportunity to escape. If Black Star had not entered the sanctum, they would not have dared to act rashly, afraid that Han Shao would come knocking on their door to teach them a lesson. After discussing for a while, the people who avoided the battle could only barely reach a consensus. Those who were willing to leave would plan on their own, while those who were unwilling to leave were not allowed to leak the secret. Looking at everyone arguing, Dylan was a little distracted. He played with the grass in his hand, and the beautiful memories of the past flashed through his mind. He recalled the glorious holy kingdom of the elves that he had once created. He couldn't help but miss the scene of him playing with his many concubines in the pure white palace. Those beautiful, aloof, and pure faces flashed before his eyes. Unfortunately, after he died in the tragedy of the Pinnacles, the elven holy kingdom lost its protection, and these concubines could not control their own destinies. The identity of a beyond grade, a widow, was like an emperor's harem, enough to attract the interest of many powerful gray figures. Now that things had come to this, even though he had come back to life, his old friend had already faded away with the passage of time. Even though he had strength, he couldn't do anything about it. Dylan's face tightened, and he subconsciously crushed the grass in a powder. The three universal civilizations, not adding insult to injury at this time, is already the bottom line. How can I help you? On the other side, somewhere in the training base, a group of beyond grade as gathered in the room and looked at each other. These people were part of the members of the third revival. Excluding most of the direct descendants of the civilizations, the rest were neutral beyond grade as. Because of their common interests, the third batch of beyond grade as who had revived had private groups. The revived direct descendants formed a faction, and the free beyond grade as formed a faction. Although the three universal civilizations had placed everyone under house arrest, they could still communicate in private. After all, they were a group of important combatants, and they could not really restrict all their freedom like they were in prison. After a while, a beyond grade, broke the silence. Black Star has gone to the sanctum. What are his plans for gathering us at this time? Everyone immediately turned to look at the organizer of this gathering, an upper stage beyond grade, named Stein. Stein was a male Mosi with transparent wings. He looked like a moth. Apart from his wings and antennae, the rest of his body was humanoid. At that moment, his two antennae were trembling. He seemed rather nervous as he whispered, I've heard some news. Black Star said that the Sanctum has an unlimited number of revivals. It might be a lie to deceive us, what? Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. The three universal civilizations had always controlled the channels and did not allow the third batch of revivers to come into contact with the relevant information. Therefore, they had never known that Han Shao had once said that the Sanctum revival was only limited to one time. What's going on? Everyone hurriedly asked. Stein quickly explained, Black Star said something different to us about the Sanctum revival compared to the other beyond grade as. He used to say that the Sanctum revival is only limited to one time, but he said to us that it has no limit. I only came into contact with this information by chance. There must be something wrong with it. Is the news reliable? I can't guarantee it, but it's most likely true, Stein hurriedly said. Everyone's faces darkened, and their minds raced. If Black Star had two versions of the story, the other beyond grade as would definitely know about it. However, up until now, no one had exposed him or reported him. Everyone shuddered and subconsciously formed a conspiracy theory. Perhaps Black Star's statement to them was a deliberate lie to trick them into helping. The other beyond grade, as were all vested interests, so they tacitly agreed to this behavior. Not only did they not expose him, they even cooperated to deceive the third batch of revivers. Everyone wanted to use them as cannon fodder. In fact, this speculation was correct. Based on their perspective, this possibility was completely plausible and very convincing. However, due to the misunderstanding of the key information, the conclusion was exactly the opposite of the truth. The more they thought about it, the more shocked they became, and their anger continued to surge. Someone took a deep breath to calm the anger in his chest and asked with a deep voice, "Then what should we do now? If the revival is only limited to one time, then this is our last life. We have no choice but to consider a way out," Stein pondered. "Are we going to take the opportunity to escape? Although Black Star isn't here, we're still under house arrest in this area. Those beyond grade, as from the later generations, aren't easy to deal with." After a fierce argument, someone suddenly made a suggestion. "The situation is still unclear. Let's not make a move first. When Black Star returns to revive the sanctum, we'll most likely watch together. At that time, we'll see if he revives the second death. If not, then no matter what reason Black Star gives, we'll question him face to face and be in the right. This way, we can shake the new revivers and the direct descendants who revived at the same time as us. We can work together to break the house arrest of the three universal civilizations and resist the fate of being cannon fodder." Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. It would be difficult for them to resist by themselves, and the next revival might be an opportunity to seek a temporary alliance. "Then it's settled. We'll attack together." Stein clapped in agreement. Primeval Star River, Mechanical Race territory. In the Mechanical Palace, Manison's Lord's avatar and Kasui's remote projection sat opposite each other, casually playing cards. "I really envy you. You don't have to manage the affairs of the association and can spend all your time digesting the insights of the war. I want to be like this too," Kasui grumbled as he watched the game. Manison did not mind and casually said, "Black Star isn't around, so we need someone to supervise the association. I've long left my position as the president, and I'm not even the vice president. This job belongs to you." "Sigh, there's nothing I can do." Before Black Star left, he told me that some association members and revivers might not be too well behaved while he was away. He told me to be careful of variables, so I can only do as he says. Kasui shook his head helplessly. Just like the exploration era, war had always been a catalyst for the strong. Many beyond grade as had been stationed in the interception circle for a year and experienced large and small battles, so they had more or less gained new insights. Manison and Kasui both discovered a wider space for improvement. As long as they went into seclusion for a period of time, their strength could still improve. Unfortunately, Black Star had gone to the sanctum and told him to be careful. Kasui could only suppress the wormhole of digesting the war experience and turn to manage the association, so he was very envious that Manison could focus on cultivating in seclusion. "You're thinking too much. I've also encountered some miscellaneous matters here." Manison's tone was calm. "Nilfgaardi has been restless recently. He's not willing to let the machinery faith and mechanical race be controlled by Black Star and me. He feels that these benefits should have been his, so he's trying to regain his former position as the leader." "Oh, what did he do?" Kasui was curious. "Humph. As soon as Black Star left, he sent someone to the machinery faith to promote his return. He wants to use his identity as the founder to harvest the main faith of the believers. It's obvious that he wants to take advantage of the situation." "What was the result?" Kasui was interested. "What else?" "He's a founder who was eliminated by history and only revived because of Black Star. He wants to shake Black Star's position." "Dream on." Manison scoffed. "That's true. Nilfgaardi's prestige has long been worn away by time. He doesn't have the capital to compete with Black Star yet." Kasui nodded, paused, and joked. "Furthermore, even you can't beat Black Star, let alone him." "Humph, ridiculous." Manison glanced at him and snorted. If not for the fact that we've known each other for so many years, I wouldn't have bothered with you. Kasuyi shrugged and asked, what about the mechanical race? Nilfgaardi's return as your ancestor should be quite troublesome for you, right? Who do you think I am? I've been managing the mechanical race for many years. Is it possible for him to make me give up my base just because he's an ancestor? Manison's tone was calm. So what did you do to him? In the past, I would have made him a felon long ago, but I haven't done such a thing for a long time. Nilfgaardi is the ancestor of the mechanical race, after all. I can't do anything to him, even if I want to be justified. Therefore, I gave him a group of mechanical race members and told him to set up a new mechanical race. So, the mechanical race has already split? Kasuyi raised his eyebrows. Manison did not mind and said calmly, it's not that serious. I can give him some of my clansmen. After all, they can be reborn. However, the wealth I've accumulated over the years, he won't be able to get a single screw. Hee, you're still the same. Other than Black Star, no one can take advantage of you. Kasuyi shook his head and laughed. Humph, even Black Star didn't take advantage of me much. Manison did not mean what he said. Kasuyi only smiled and did not expose Manison's stubbornness. He changed the topic and blinked. By the way, before Black Star left, he gave me the contact information of a stranger. He told me that if those revivers do anything, I can find this person to settle it. Black Star wouldn't do something without thinking. What's the name of that stranger? I don't know his name. Black Star only told me to call him Oathkeeper. I haven't contacted him yet. I wonder what his background is that even Black Star values him so much. Kasuyi was interested. It seems like Black Star is hiding a lot of secrets. Manison snorted. World Tree Territory, Tree King Palace. Streams of emerald green light surged, flowing along the roots and veins into a giant cocoon made of leaves. It looked like a cabbage, and below it was a luxurious pedestal. It looked like an altar. After a while, the leaves that formed the cocoon suddenly opened layer by layer, and a figure emitting a dazzling green light walked out. He walked down the stairs step by step, and the green light slowly disappeared, revealing the appearance of the subduing Tree King. You're finally back to life. Below the altar, joy flashed across the eyes of Fortitude, Tree King, who had been waiting for a long time. He took 2 steps forward to welcome him. After watering him for so long, the subduing Tree King has finally matured. This way, I can finally slack off. Phew, I'm still not used to it. The subduing Tree King exhaled and moved his body stiffly, waking up his dormant senses. Although the world tree could allow him to return to his seed state and be reborn, the process of germinating and maturing was very uncomfortable. When he thought of Black Star, who had made him suffer a lot, the subduing Tree King could not help but feel angry. He actually made me die once. I'll definitely make that outsider pay the price next time. You'll have a chance. Fortitude, Tree King immediately chimed in. Only then did the subduing Tree King turn to look at him in surprise. Why is it you? Where's the Heart Tree King? He was sealed by that outsider. Fortitude Tree King said with a disdainful tone. The subduing Tree King frowned and said with a deep voice, what happened when I died? Hearing this, Fortitude Tree King did not force him. He directly told the subduing Tree King the whole story through the mental network. After knowing the whole story, the subduing Tree King's expression softened, and he slowly nodded. So that's how it is. The Heart Tree King restrained the recovery-type Esper, resulting in the success of the exchange tactic. Many high-level combatants of that enemy civilization died. Although the Heart Tree King was defeated later on, the strategic results he created have already laid a good foundation for us. The numerical advantage is gradually slipping to us. The high-level combatants of the enemy civilization will only decrease as we fight in the future. Well done. But the Ancestral Tree King is not satisfied. The Heart Tree King has been captured, and the Tree King crown cannot be taken back. Fortitude Tree King said calmly. It's fine. It's just a seal. We'll find a chance to save the Heart Tree King in the future. Exchanging a temporary loss for the enemy's permanent loss is undoubtedly a profit for us. The subduing Tree King waved his hand nonchalantly. All right, since you've revived, I'll leave the matters here to you. I'll return to the mother first. With that, the Fortitude Tree King did not wait for the subduing Tree King to react and immediately removed his physical body, returning to the world tree and disappearing. Humph, you still have to rely on me. The subduing Tree King snorted and had no intention of rejecting. As a pugilist, he was already used to doing such tiring work. Chapter 1391. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. Everything in the training base was the same as before, but Black Star's temporary departure caused a stir in the hearts of the people. After experiencing many storms, Black Star had already become a stabilizing force in the eyes of the Beyond Grade as, under his operation, the common interests of the Beyond Grade has continued to extend. To this day, it was partly because of Black Star's existence that they were able to gather under the banner of the Beyond Grade A Association. Therefore, although Han Xiao was going for official business and would not be gone for long, everyone still felt that something was missing. During this period, Kasui was in charge of the overall situation and followed Han Zhao's instructions to pay attention to the movements of the revivers. He originally thought that it was just a routine matter, but he did not expect that there would really be an abnormality. A few days after Han Xiao left, Dylan and a portion of the revivers of the Avoidance faction disappeared. Kasui had been paying attention to the movements of the association members, and it did not take long for him to discover this abnormality. As comrades who had resolutely stood on the association side against the three universal civilizations, the treatment of the first two batches of revivers was naturally different from that of the third batch. The association had no choice but to consider the thoughts of all the members. They would not deprive them of their freedom just because a portion of the members were unwilling to participate in the war. Therefore, Dylan and the others were not under house arrest like the third batch of revivers. Shocked, Kasui immediately investigated and asked the revivers of the Avoidance faction who had not left. Only then did he finally find out that Dylan and the others had taken the opportunity to leave. However, no one revealed their route. They only said that Dylan had cast a spell to bring some of his companions into the secondary dimension and used this method to leave. Kasui tried to contact Dylan and the others, but this group of people seemed to be determined to leave and could not be contacted at all. Helpless, he thought of the contact number of Oathkeeper that Han Xiao had left for him. With a curious attitude, he turned to ask this stranger for help. In the office of the training base, Kasui leaned back in his chair. The communicator on the table shot out an inverted cone of light, sweeping out a virtual screen in front of him that was displaying the dial screen. The phone rang for a few seconds before the call was picked up. The black communication interface changed, revealing a figure in a black robe. He looked rather mysterious. Kasui sized this person up curiously and said, "I'm Kasui. Are you the Oathkeeper Black Star's name?" "It's me." Oathkeeper responded indifferently and also looked up to examine Kasui. The two of them looked at each other. For a moment, the atmosphere became a little strange. After a few seconds, Kasui asked with interest, "Before Black Star left, he gave me your contact information. He said that if the revivers do anything, I can ask you for help. He informed me as well." Oathkeeper nodded. "So what's your relationship with Black Star? I've never heard of you before. It's normal that you don't know me. I have a closer relationship with Black Star," Oathkeeper said calmly. Hearing this, Kasui narrowed his eyes and all kinds of speculations flashed through his mind. The existence of the Holy Covenant had always been a secret. Many revivers had never revealed it, so he naturally did not know about it. While thinking, Kasui probed, "Could it be that you're Black Star's secret subordinate?" Oathkeeper's eyes immediately sharpened, and he said in a deep voice, "You're thinking too much. I'm just an important collaborator of his. I've never been his subordinate." "Really? I don't believe it." Kasui cursed inwardly. Many association members flattered themselves like this. They all said that they were not Black Star's subordinates, but they still followed his orders. He was already used to such a situation. After complaining in his heart, Kasui calmed down and asked curiously, I don't quite understand. What's your relationship with those revivers? Why did Blackstar ask me to ask you for help? This is a secret. Blackstar didn't tell you, so I can't reveal it either. You just need to know that I can help. Don't ask too much. Oathkeeper's tone was indifferent. He did not know that Kasui was also an insider of the truth of the Sanctum revival, so he naturally hid it. Among all of Han Zhao's collaborators, the Holy Covenant was a particularly important existence. An outsider like Kasui definitely could not touch on the core secrets. So, when Oathkeeper expressed his stance, it was easy for others to misunderstand that his stance was superior. Seeing this, Kasui curled his lips. TSK, and you're still saying that you're not Blackstar's secret subordinate. Otherwise, why would you feel such a sense of superiority when keeping secrets for Blackstar? Seeing that Oathkeeper had no intention of communicating further, Kasui temporarily gave up on collecting information and told him about Dylan and the others. After hearing this, Oathkeeper's eyes flickered, and he slowly said, Dylan, as expected, I'll talk to him. He's already blocked all communications from the outside world. Can you contact him? Kasui was surprised. I have my own ways. Don't ask too much. Just leave it to me. Oathkeeper waved his hand and hung up without saying anything. Seeing the communication screen go black, Kasui muttered softly with a strange expression. So mysterious. I've never heard of his name. When did Blackstar know such a guy? Somewhere in the secondary dimension, Dylan and the others were traveling on the golem carrier made by the elves. The room was silent, and no one spoke. From time to time, they would look at the radar-like magic compass, afraid that someone would chase after them. Everything is going smoothly so far. We've already entered the secondary dimension world. As long as we avoid the control area of the 3 universal civilizations, we don't have to worry about being discovered. The carrier had a magical consciousness and was reporting the situation. So far, the operation had been quite smooth, and they had not encountered much resistance. It will take at least a month for Blackstar to return. That's enough time for us to completely hide. The war has nothing to do with us anymore, one of his companions said softly. Hearing this, all the revivers who had left with Dylan could not help but smile in relief. Only Dylan was not very happy. He sat in his seat expressionlessly. Who? Right at this moment, balls of black flames suddenly appeared out of thin air, forming a mental projection of Oathkeeper. They appeared in front of Dylan, causing the laughter in the room to stop abruptly. You really did come. Dylan was not surprised at all. Oathkeeper stared at him and said calmly, It's not appropriate to leave without saying goodbye, right? No one knows if the world will explode tomorrow. It could be the last time we see each other, so there's nothing to be particular about. Dylan crossed his arms and said coldly, If you do this, Blackstar will be very unhappy. Oathkeeper's expression was calm. Why should I care if he's happy or not? Dylan snorted. If you're just here to chat with me, I welcome you. If you want to persuade me, then forget it. You know I won't help the 3 universal civilizations. Oathkeeper shook his head. I understand the hatred between you and the 3 universal civilizations, so I won't persuade you to let it go. However, leaving the main universe is just an act of evasion. Since I owe you a favor, I won't take revenge on the 3 universal civilizations. What else can I do? Or are you trying to persuade me not to run away and stay behind to make the 3 universal civilizations pay the price in blood? Dylan's tone was sarcastic. Oathkeeper did not mind and slowly said, It's normal for you to have complaints, but you have to look forward. Now, we're fighting for the 3 universal civilizations just to protect the galactic society. Our current alliance is just a temporary measure. Even if we win in the end, the 3 universal civilizations will still have many irreconcilable conflicts with us. Blackstar is tolerant of you. Other than sympathizing with your situation, it's also because he foresees that there will be many conflicts with the 3 universal civilizations in the future. He never asked you to let go of your hatred, so why don't you wait? I don't doubt Blackstar's foresight, but I'm not someone who changes my mind easily. No matter what, I'm not willing to work for the 3 universal civilizations. If you want me to go back, Wait until the day you become enemies with the three universal civilizations again. Dylan straightened his back and curled his lips. Oathkeeper said calmly, now that you're running away and not participating in the battle with the association, even if you return in the future, we won't welcome you. Then I won't come back. Dylan pointed at Oathkeeper and said coldly, also, pay attention to your words. I'm not your soldier, and the association is not an army. Don't use the word run away. Oathkeeper nodded and said calmly, it's your choice to leave. Since that's the case, I won't persuade you. The association doesn't lack you. Just don't regret it. With that, Oathkeeper turned to look at the other revivers and casually said, as for you guys, when Black Star returns from the Sanctum, I'll tell you guys valuable information. You guys can decide for yourselves whether to leave with Dylan completely or come back to participate in the battle with us. As soon as he said that, Oathkeeper's mental projection cracked and turned into clusters of black sparks before disappearing. With his identity, he could actually stand up and emphasize the truth of the Sanctum revival to prove Han Zhao's words. But Oathkeeper did not intend to do so now. Firstly, it was his personal will, and secondly, it was Han Zhao's instructions before entering the Sanctum. If some revivers wanted to take the opportunity to leave, then so be it. There was no need to rush for others to enjoy the benefits of the Sanctum revival that led to eternal life. Oathkeeper knew that what he had to do was to use the communication function of Soul Flame to show these people the scene of Black Star's Sanctum revival this time. At that time, those who wanted to leave could leave by themselves, and those who wanted to leave could leave as far as possible. At that time, it was not certain who would be begging who. Don't think that he and Black Star would keep them back again and again. This world did not lack 3 melons and 2 dates. Seeing Oathkeeper disappear, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Their eyes flickered as they fell into deep thought. Dylan, on the other hand, sneered. Regret? This word has never existed in my dictionary. Under Kasui's control, the departure of Dylan and the others did not cause too much of a commotion, but it was inevitable that the other association members felt something was amiss. Most of them participated in the war and fought to the death on the front lines, while some of their companions at the back stayed away from the war and went to the secondary dimensions to have fun. This made some association members feel that it was unfair. However, as a beyond grade A, they would not change their decision easily. Although they were somewhat shaken and dissatisfied, no one followed Dylan's example and took action. They only hid their emotions in the bottom of their hearts and trained silently. Very soon, more than a month passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, a Sanctum passage appeared in space somewhere in the ancient star desert and spat out a figure. Phew, I'm back. Han Zhao shook his head and felt that the symptoms this time were lighter than the last time, and his senses returned to normal faster. The many technologies that he had fished out from the first Sanctum quickly stabilized in his memory palace. He adjusted his state for a while, took out the communicator to look at the time, and the corners of his mouth curled up. It only took me 40 days this time. My authority has increased by 1 level, and the flow of time has decreased. If this continues, I might be able to come out in a few days. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed and flipped through the information bar. He had only left for a short while, and there were no other major events. Only Kasui and Oathkeeper reported to him about Dylan's departure. He escaped while I wasn't around. Tisk, I'll settle the score with him in the future. Han Xiao curled his lips. Thinking of Dylan's character, he was not too surprised. However, for now, this guy's problem was not important. The most important thing was to digest the gains of this trip. Han Xiao looked down at the back of his hand. The new Sanctum revival mark was emitting a faint light, and he could not help but smile. This time, I can finally completely firm the determination of the Beyond grade as to participate in the battle. I hope the 3 hooligans can remain calm. Chapter 1392, Black Star's Territory, an artificial planet in the training base area. On a metal wasteland, many Beyond grade as were gathered. They stood in groups of 2s and 3s, whispering to each other as they waited for Han Xiao to arrive. In the past month or so, the situation had not changed much. The moment Han Xiao returned from the sanctum, he informed Kasui and asked him to gather everyone. He had yet to arrive. Many of the beyond grade as present had already found out from Kasui that this gathering was to carry out a new sanctum revival. Many of them were excited, especially the third batch of revivers who had not seen the process of their revival before. They were all curious. At this moment, Stein and the others were scattered in the crowd, deliberately not standing together. When they turned their heads, their gazes would occasionally meet, and they would communicate with their eyes. They had a tacit understanding of today's action plan. A month ago, when they found out that Han Xiao might have lied about the Sanctum revival, this group of people did not publicize it openly. Instead, they secretly prepared to openly question and expose Han Xiao's lies on this special occasion today, causing the third batch of revivers to have a common enemy. Therefore, they were still the only ones who knew about it. On the other side, the association members and the first two batches of revivers spontaneously spread out at the edge of the crowd, forming a half-encirclement, sandwiching most of the third batch of revivers in the middle. On the surface, they were chatting casually with their companions, but in reality, their nerves were secretly tense. They did not plan in private, nor did they know what Stein and the others were planning. However, everyone knew that Black Star had deceived the third batch of revivers, and it was very likely that it would be exposed today. If the third batch of revivers saw that the people who died in the second battle were not revived, no one knew how intense the backlash would be. Therefore, although many beyond grade as did not plan in secret, they stood there spontaneously, forming a vague encirclement. Although they did not know what excuse Black Star would use to fool the third batch of revivers, everyone was prepared to prevent any unforeseen events from happening today. It's a pity that we were tricked in the last battle of the intercepting circle, causing Aurora to be knocked down. If she had played her usual role, there might not have been a second death. This way, Black Star's lies could continue to stabilize these people. Everyone secretly glanced at the third batch of revivers. Most of them felt that it was a pity that they could not fool these people for longer. The beyond grade, as all had their own plans and waited patiently. After a while, a stream of light suddenly broke through the atmosphere and fell from the sky, landing in front of everyone. It turned around and scattered the sparks all over its body, revealing Han Zhao's figure. We haven't seen each other for more than a month. Are you all missing me day and night? Han Xiao glanced at everyone with a smile, seeming to be in a good mood. Who is this person? He's so shameless. Mila Zhao's had a look of disdain. Do you want to eat my hand, fart? Sun Hunter curled his lips. TSK Tisk, it's a pity that I already have a little secret in my heart. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind using my body to welcome you. Reeve licked his lips, not embarrassed at all. As soon as he returned, it was as if he had been injected with vitality. The crowd immediately became lively, all talking at once and making fun of him. He was quite popular. After teasing everyone for a while, Han Xiao stopped smiling and showed the Sanctum revival mark. All right, let's get down to business first. Our fallen comrades are still waiting for us to wake them up. With that, he turned around and activated the mark, emitting rays of light. Everyone quieted down and watched him operate from behind. The historical beyond grade, as in the explored universe, were limited. The last revival had already used all the mediums that they had collected so far, and the remaining historical beyond grade as had yet to be found. Therefore, there were basically no newcomers revived this time. They were all dead in the interception circle. The figures of the dead appeared in the light of the mark one after another, gradually materializing. Stein and the others immediately perked up and stared at the revival light cluster. Their bodies tensed up, and they were all prepared to take action. As long as they did not see anyone who had died a second time in this batch of revivers, they would immediately attack according to the plan. At the same time, the association members also quietly changed their positions. The intention of surrounding them became more and more obvious. They were tense and prepared to deal with a possible backlash from the third batch of revivers. At this moment, under everyone's gazes, the lights slowly faded, and this batch of revivers finally took shape, revealing their clear appearances. They were all familiar faces. Stein's gaze quickly swept across and suddenly focused on a few figures. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes as he turned to look at his companions. Everyone's face was filled with surprise. These figures were the members of the third batch of revivers who had sacrificed themselves in the Interception Circle battle, the Beyond Grade, as who had died twice. The people who died a second time have really revived? Black Star didn't lie to us. Stein was rather surprised. His tense body relaxed, and he secretly wondered if he had gotten the wrong information. However, no matter what, it's good news that Black Star didn't lie. Then, according to the plan, there's no need to take the risk today. Stein heaved a sigh of relief. In any case, it wasn't exposed. The conspirators had already agreed that they would bury this matter in their stomachs and pretend that nothing had happened. However, at this moment, Stein's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of something, and his mood became strange. Wait, Black Star didn't lie to us. Doesn't that mean... Stein subconsciously turned to look at the association members beside him and was shocked to find that the expressions of these people were all frozen. They stared straight at the people who had died a second time and were even more incredulous than him. The other third batch of revivers who did not know anything had normal expressions. They had always thought that Han Xiao had not lied to them, so they did not have any reaction at all. However, the association members who believed that the Sanctum Revival was a one-time thing were completely dumbfounded. They had originally wanted to help Black Star prevent the backlash after the lie was exposed, but they did not expect to be the ones who were shocked and saw a scene that left them dumbfounded. Didn't they always say that the Sanctum Revival was only a one-time thing? What the hell was going on? Many association members could not suppress their emotions and surrounded Han Xiao, squeezing him into the middle. Their faces were filled with shock and confusion. Black Star, what's going on? Sun Hunter's pocket-sized head was filled with questions, and he anxiously asked what was on everyone's mind. Although he did not point it out because he was worried about the reaction of the third batch of revivers, everyone understood what he meant and stared straight at Han Xiao. Han Xiao raised his brows and spread his hands. Didn't I say that the Sanctum Revival is unlimited? Why are you making such a fuss? You? Everyone stared at Han Xiao, speechless. Only then did they realize what was going on. It turned out that Black Star was not lying to the third batch of revivers, but telling the truth. So the ones you lied to were us. You made us think that the Sanctum Revival was only limited to one time and trembled in fear. You lied to us so hard. Many of the association members were filled with resentment as they looked at Han Xiao with resentment. If lips could be turned into blades, they would have stabbed Han Xiao into pieces. Khan pressed down on Han Xiao's shoulder, gritted his teeth, and said in a low voice, "You've been hiding it from us." Under everyone's indignant gazes, Han Xiao was calm. He shook Khan's hand and smiled. So what? Don't tell me you're not surprised now. Without waiting for anyone to respond, he tilted his head and continued. Don't forget what happened back then. Don't forget the situation we were in back then. If this matter was exposed back then, would the three universal civilizations still have adopted a wait-and-see attitude and given us some time to accumulate? Perhaps internal friction would have broken out long ago, and the current battle situation would only be worse. But now, our situation is different. With the pressure of foreign enemies, the three universal civilizations can't do anything to us. Now that the truth is out, it's good to boost morale. You'll understand if you think about it. I want to only revive once. You'll know about this sooner or later. The previous concealment was just a diversion tactic from a strategic point of view. Furthermore, I'm not the only one who knows. I've already told this secret to a trustworthy Beyond Grade A. As he spoke, Han Xiao looked at Kasuyi and nodded. Seeing this, Kasuyi stood up at the right time and nodded. Yes, Blackstar told me about this a long time ago, and I agree with the reason for hiding it. I didn't tell you before because I was considering dealing with the three universal civilizations, but now is the time to make it public. Kasuyi corroborated Han Zhao's statement while secretly criticizing him. His understanding of the sanctums came from the Celestial Star Alliance, but after receiving Han Zhao's signal, he could only say that it was Han Xiao who told him. After hearing this explanation, the association members blinked their eyes and slowly calmed down. They pondered over this statement and had to admit that there was indeed a reason to hide it. If they took a big step, they would most likely end up in the balls. If Blackstar had made this matter public back then, the threat to the three universal civilizations would have been too great. They would definitely not have let it go. They would have probably started a war, and an even more intense civil war. Things like the mechanical race battle would have definitely happened earlier. Furthermore, although they had been deceived, this matter was not a loss to them, but a surprise. They had thought that they could only revive once, but they did not expect it to be unlimited. As long as Blackstar could continue to provide the Sanctum revival, wouldn't they have achieved a different kind of immortality? Thinking of this, a strong sense of excitement immediately replaced the shock. The eyes of the association members lit up, and their confidence soared. They felt that Han Xiao was exuding an extremely tempting aura, and they only wanted to hug this golden thigh tightly. Biger, who was at the side, was shocked. Oathkeeper's instructions flashed through his mind, and he immediately understood that Oathkeeper must have known about it as well. Together with Han Xiao, he had, worked together to hide it. No wonder he suggested that I continue to help Blackstar. Those people who thought that they had used up all their revivals and did not give Blackstar face are probably going to regret it. This thought flashed through Biger's mind, and he secretly rejoiced. On the other side, the third batch of revivers who did not know anything looked at the excited association members around Han Xiao and were secretly surprised. They did not know why these people were so excited. While everyone was getting excited, Manison's Lord's avatar sent a confused emoji and asked in a deep voice, "Blackstar, you knew that the World Tree would attack, so you hid the truth of the Sanctum revival to protect the Beyond Grade, as in the three universal civilizations." Han Xiao smiled and did not refute. Seeing this, the expressions of the Beyond Grade has changed slightly. Although everyone was already very impressed with Han Xiao, they could not help but feel even more respect for him. It turned out that Blackstar had long been working for the safety of the Galactic Society. He had secretly done so many things to achieve temporary peace for today's war. To the entire Galactic Society, only the word great was worthy of such a contribution. Such foresight, just thinking about it, made everyone suck in a breath of air, their hearts filled with admiration. Only such a person was qualified to be the leader of their entire Beyond Grade A group. His ability was always trustworthy. Secret Master shook his head and sighed. "Blackstar, someone like you probably doesn't need the help of luck." "Don't talk nonsense. I really need it." Han Xiao curled his lips. Then he turned around and patted Kasui. "There's no need to hide this matter. Later, we'll tell all the Beyond Grade, including those who avoid the war, and all the Calamity Grades who are training, the truth of the Sanctum revival. Tell them that no matter what the outcome of the war is, only by fighting side by side with us now will I let them enjoy this benefit in the future. Otherwise, don't even think about getting a revival slot in the future." "Understood." Kasui nodded. Hearing this, the association members felt much better. Only participants like them would receive special treatment. That was more like it. Otherwise, it would be unfair. All of a sudden, everyone's determination to participate in the battle was unprecedentedly firm. The confusion and hesitation that was still there instantly disappeared. Blackstar had said that if the three universal civilizations lost this war, he would take them away, which meant that the Sanctum revival would still be their guarantee for the future. In the hearts of the association members, the importance of Blackstar's personal safety immediately rose to the highest level. Even if they died in battle, they could not let Blackstar be in danger. The association's unity instantly exploded. Looking at how motivated everyone was, Han Xiao smiled, knowing that the most basic goal had been achieved. Immediately afterward, he retracted his smile and turned to look at the direct Beyond Grade who were also shocked, with a gleam in his eyes. "It's time to have a chat with the three universal civilizations in a meeting room of the three universal civilizations." Today was the day Han Xiao would carry out the Sanctum revival, but because they had seen it last time, and the people who were revived this time were all dead, Mar Bruce and the other two did not pay much attention to it. Instead, they discussed the situation of the harassment battle at the front lines with the general staff. As for the situation of the Sanctum revival this time, there were special supervisors paying attention. The three of them did not watch it with their own eyes and waited to hear the report afterward. A meeting was being held in the room, and the remote projections of Simon and the other military officials were reporting. This is the current situation. The harassment troops at the front lines have done their best, but the World Tree Army is fighting steadily. It's difficult to stop them. Mar Bruce, Lewis, and Ethereal Pope were listening to the battle report attentively. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, the sound of an emergency communicator rang out, interrupting the military member's report. Lewis frowned, opened the emergency communication channel, and said with a deep voice, "What's going on? Your Excellencies, the Sanctum revival has been completed." The supervisor's anxious voice came from the channel. "Okay, got it. Write a report for us later. I still have an important battle meeting to attend." Lewis did not react and was about to hang up. However, at this moment, the supervisor suddenly shouted, his tone filled with anxiety and panic. "This time, Black Star has revived the direct beyond grade as who died in battle twice. Your Excellencies, the Sanctum revival is not limited to just one time. What he said about being unlimited might be true." As soon as he finished speaking, the three of them were stunned for a moment before standing up. Their expressions changed drastically. Chapter 1393. After Han Xiao stabilized the Beyond Grade as present, he turned around and submitted an application for a meeting to the three universal civilizations, which was quickly approved. As soon as he arrived at the conference room, he saw the gloomy expressions of Mar Bruce and the other two. The atmosphere in the room was solemn, and it felt like a trial. Han Xiao did not mind, ignoring the sharp gazes of the three of them. He took the initiative to speak with a smile. "The three of you don't look too good. Have you been too tired recently?" Mar Bruce did not respond. He said to himself, "Black Star, you tricked us." Lewis and the Pope's faces were also tense, and they looked solemn. More than 10 minutes ago, they had received the report of the revival and were shocked. They quickly stopped the battle meeting at the front line and discussed this matter urgently. A few years ago, when the revivers first appeared, Black Star claimed that the Sanctum revival was a one-time thing. The three universal civilizations had also suspected it, but only Black Star could enter the Sanctum now, and they could not verify it at all. They could only get the relevant information for Black Star, and were always in a passive position. To this day, although the three universal civilizations were still skeptical, they had largely accepted the fact that the Sanctum revival was a one-time thing. They had made the main arrangements around this point. However, the unforeseen event at this moment disrupted many of their plans. Although the Staff Officer Department had made 2 preparations and set up a plan to deal with this situation, in the current situation, no plan could perfectly deal with this change. There was no foolproof plan. In their shock, the three of them were about to urgently discuss a new countermeasure when Han Xiao applied for a meeting. The three of them temporarily stopped their discussion, suppressed their chaotic thoughts, and planned to meet Han Xiao first. "Is that so? Then I'm honored." Han Xiao spread his hands and smiled. "Don't forget, the three universal civilizations planned to deal with us back then, and we were on opposite sides. I used a diversion tactic to trick you guys. I don't think there's a problem. It only proves that I did a good job. You must be very proud now." The Ethereal Pope snorted. "No, I don't feel anything." Han Xiao shook his head and said playfully, "Besides, why do you all look like you've suffered a loss? A group of high-level combatants who can revive countless times can go head-to-head with the World Tree. Isn't this good news for the battle? Or do you still have any bad intentions?" Hearing the mockery in Han Xiao's tone, the ethereal hierarch remained expressionless, but he was furious. During the negotiation, they had engaged in a risky game with Black Star, using the independent political status of the Beyond Grade A Association as a bargaining chip in exchange for the association's participation in the war. One of the reasons the three universal civilizations agreed to this was because they hoped to use external forces to eliminate the Beyond Grade as of the association and reduce the hidden dangers of having too many beyond grade as. This way, they would not have to fight internally and waste their own strength. The starting point of this plan was the saying that the Sanctum Revival was a one-time thing. However, this was a trap that Han Xiao had dug long ago. When the three universal civilizations agreed to that deal, they had already lost this game. It was equivalent to the association gaining political status for free, and they did not suffer heavy losses as the three universal civilizations had hoped. The three of them now realized that Black Star had obviously taken advantage of them without risking anything. Now that he had revealed his trump card, they were furious and knew that they had fallen into a trap. Although the pressure from the external enemies was huge, the three universal civilizations did not treat this game as their focus for the time being. Instead, they did not mind expanding the scale of their high-level combatants. However, this was still an important strategic direction. However, from the looks of it, this plan to alleviate the imbalance of the supers had failed. If they had known that the Sanctum Revival was unlimited, they would not have chosen this game route. Unfortunately, what was done could not be undone. They could only swallow their losses and did not have the energy to fight internally for the time being. Bruce exhaled and slowly said, "Indeed, as you said, this is good news for the battle. Black Star, we hope you can give us a definite answer. What exactly is the Sanctum Revival? Is there really no limit to the number of times?" As soon as he said that, the other two stared at Han Xiao without blinking. Han Xiao did not comment and said, "In theory, there is no limit." In theory? The three of them had a "what are you playing at this time" expression. Han Xiao stroked his chin, raised his brows, and said, "Every beyond grade A individual has no limit to the number of times they can revive, but there is a limit to the people who can activate the Sanctum Revival." What do you mean? Bruce frowned. Activating the Sanctum Revival requires authority. Every time the Sanctum is opened, the authority of the person who opens it will increase by 1 level, and the number of revivals of an individual will be recorded. Every additional revival requires a corresponding level of authority. Let me explain it to you this way. If you die twice, then the third revival requires a level 3 authority, which means that only the person who opened the Sanctum for the third time can do it. If a newcomer opens the Sanctum halfway, the authority will not be enough, Han Xiao said. Hearing this, the three of them exchanged glances with each other, skeptical. You mean it's best to make the emissary who opens the Sanctum always be the same person? Lewis scanned Han Xiao from head to toe and said with a deep voice, "Why do I feel like you're lying to us again?" Black Star had already entered the Sanctum many times. If there was really such a thing as authority, it would obviously be beneficial to him. If the battle was urgent, even if they cracked the secret of the Sanctum in the future, the best candidate to open it would still be Black Star. If they changed to a newcomer, they would not be able to achieve the maximum utilization. When you enter the Sanctum one day in the future, won't you know if the existence of authority is real or fake? Han Xiao did not mind. In any case, it was true and fake, so he did not care about their suspicions. He had not completed the Sanctum mission back then, so he used this explanation to build a foundation for it. It might be useful in the future. Seeing this, the three of them felt a headache. Black Star was certain that they could not confirm the mechanism of the Sanctum, so he was not afraid of being exposed no matter what he said. How infuriating! He would definitely not get an answer if he continued to ask, so Bruce could only change the topic and say solemnly, "No matter what, this is good news to raise morale. Do you plan to announce it to the entire Galactic Society?" "No need. The World Tree hasn't reached the mainland yet, so there's no need to let the people know so early. It's enough for us upper echelons and some of the chosen ones to know." Han Xiao waved his hand and said casually. Bruce nodded. Suddenly, he paused and changed the topic. "Black Star, we know each other well, so let's not talk about those empty words. I've thought about it carefully. It's understandable that you hid it from us back then. If we knew the truth about the Sanctum Revival long ago, we wouldn't have been able to sit still like before. We would have definitely started a large-scale cleansing. You knew about the World Tree long ago, and in order to maintain the internal balance, you've put in a lot of effort. However, what I'm curious about is if a large-scale civil war really breaks out, what will you do? I want to delay it as much as possible and give us more time to prepare. However, if you guys insist on going your own way, I'm also prepared to reveal the existence of the world tree to you in advance to shift the conflict. Han Xiao did not hide his initial thoughts and spoke them aloud. He smiled and continued. That's right. He smiled and said, however, you guys have discovered the traces of the world tree on your own. This saves me the trouble of earning your trust. It's a good thing for me personally. He only said half of his words. Back then, he did not gather the second set of keys and was worried that the three universal civilizations would be serious. This lie was also part of the empty fort strategy, but there was naturally no need to reveal it to the leaders of the three universal civilizations. There was no need to let them know that he had missed the real opportunity for an internal cleansing. Hearing this, the three of them could not help but shake their heads with complicated feelings. Indeed, if the research department had not discovered the traces of the world tree and Black Star had taken the initiative to tell them, they would have probably treated it as Black Star's stalling tactic and might not have stopped. They might have continued to push for an internal cleansing, which would not be good. At least from the current situation, the three of them had to admit that Black Star's actions had brought them a good result. There was no large-scale internal strife that consumed their strength, just like how Black Star had hidden the existence of the world tree for many years. However, the three of them did not like this passive position. Even though they knew that there were many benefits, they could not be happy. As expected of the winner of the Stewart Peace Prize. You're really great. Lewis snorted. 30% of it was sarcasm, 30% was sincerity, and the remaining 40% was depression. You flatter me. I'll take it as a compliment. Han Xiao chuckled. Since you guys know what you're doing, I won't disturb you anymore. Since the purpose of this meeting had been achieved, Han Xiao did not continue to chat with the three of them. He removed the remote projection and considerately gave them some space alone. He knew that the three of them still needed some time to accept reality. Seeing Han Xiao's figure disappear, the faces of the three of them immediately collapsed. I originally wanted to use the external war to deplete the combat strength of the association, but it seems like there's no chance. Bruce sighed helplessly. If that's the case, it'll be very difficult for us to settle the individual strength. The total number of beyond grade as will continue to increase and will not decrease anymore. There was a hint of fear in the ethereal Pope's tone. The three of them looked at each other for a while and could not help but sigh. Their hearts were filled with seriousness and helplessness. The threat of the world tree was too great, and they did not dare to drag them down in the war. Even though they knew that this would create a huge hidden danger in the future, they did not have the extra energy to deal with it. Furthermore, they still had to rely on the beyond grade as to deal with the high-level combatants of the world tree. What could they do? They could only watch and not even dare to make any small moves. Otherwise, if they forced Black Star away, the consequences would be unimaginable, as expected of the leader of the beyond grade as. He really chose a good time. Lewis emphasized his words, his face ashen. Not to mention the pain in the balls of the leaders of the three universal civilizations. The beyond grade, as who had witnessed it with their own eyes, were still extremely excited and accepted this reality. Under the spread of Cassie and the others, the news of the unlimited Sanctum revival also spread throughout the entire training base. All the Calamity grade supers who were being trained were instantly excited. They had thought that stepping into the beyond grade A realm would only give them a second life. But who would have thought that this was actually the ticket to eternal life? The attraction of the two could not be compared at all. The Calamity grade supers were extremely excited. The temptation of eternal life turned into a source of motivation, and almost everyone turned into a training maniac in an instant. Even Lagi, who was extremely dejected, secretly increased the amount of training he did. He was definitely a copycat. On the other side, Baiger obtained Han Zhao's approval and secretly sent the news back to the Holy Covenant organization, which immediately caused a commotion. Ancient Star Desert, Holy Covenant Base. Many of the Holy Accord revivers forced Oathkeeper into a corner with their strong bodies. Disbelief and shock remained on their faces, and the crowd was agitated. Did you know the truth long ago and have been cooperating with Black Star to lie to us? Damn it, we were actually kept in the dark by you. Say something. The group of revivers spoke at the same time. Oathkeeper pushed through the crowd with a calm expression. That's right. Black Star has already analyzed the pros and cons. I also agreed with his plan back then. If you have any objections, go look for him. After all, without his support, I wouldn't have been able to open the sanctum. He's mainly responsible. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They did not dare to look for Black Star to express their dissatisfaction. Furthermore, they had felt that there was only one chance to revive and had already used it up, so their attitude toward Black Star was more or less casual. At this moment, everyone present felt guilty and quickly recalled if they had disrespected Black Star in the past. After a while, a primordial one asked, "Is there a limit to the number of revivals? Since there's no limit to the number of times we can revive, does that mean we can continue to enjoy this treatment?" Oathkeeper glanced at him and slowly said, "Didn't you hear what Black Star said? Only by fighting side by side with them will we be able to obtain unlimited revivals in the future." Hearing this, the Holy Covenant revivers present were shocked. "We have to do the same. What else?" Oathkeeper was expressionless. "The first revival is free, but you can't expect it to be free forever. Everyone is treated equally. There's no reason for you to enjoy such benefits while living in seclusion. If you want this treatment, you have to contribute. Black Star's intentions are my intentions." The faces of many Holy Covenant revivers twitched. They were all hermits and had rejected the invitation to come out of seclusion. Originally, when they saw the association fighting to the death on the front lines, they felt that they were not involved, so they were complacent. But now, it seemed that Black Star was forcing them to come out of seclusion with benefits that they could not refuse. Living in seclusion? Did he really think that he was running a charity? Don't even think about it. Many Holy Covenant revivers understood this, and their expressions immediately changed. Some of them had a murderous glint in their eyes. If they worked together to snatch the sanctum information stored by the Holy Covenant, they might not have to care about Black Star's coercion. However, before they could finish their thoughts, Oathkeeper spoke with a calm tone. "I suggest that everyone not take the risk. That's a waste of effort. The sanctum revival requires authority. Currently, only Black Star has opened the sanctum many times and has enough authority. Furthermore, Black Star is not as gentle as me. It's best not to make a big mistake. Otherwise, the underworld can also grant you eternal life." As soon as he said that, the crowd fell silent. After more than 10 seconds, a reviver suddenly stepped out from the crowd with a righteous expression. "Our hometown is in danger, and everyone should contribute their strength. I'm very ashamed to have been watching the show here. It doesn't matter if we revive or not. I just want to participate in the battle." Everyone was surprised. They did not expect this person to be so thick-skinned. However, the next moment, everyone followed suit. Their faces were filled with righteousness, and their facial lines instantly became extremely resolute. Even their style changed. "That's right. How can we tolerate the enemy trampling on our territory? I want to give my heart to the world I love. My home has been invaded. I'm too heartbroken. My sword is Black Star's sword. I'm willing to die for my home. Justice will never be absent." Everyone shouted and expressed their stance as if they had all become warriors who were willing to protect their home. Their bodies shone with the light of righteousness, and they could not wait to rush to the battlefield. Among them, there was no lack of people who had grudges with the 3 universal civilizations, but everyone present knew what was more important. In front of the temptation of eternal life, the grudges of the past could be temporarily endured because the possibilities of the future were infinite. Most beyond grade as were arrogant, but they also knew how to bend. In the face of almost eternal benefits, all secondary conflicts could be put down. Not many mature beyond grade, as will be trapped by the past. Oathkeeper was not surprised by the choice of the Holy Covenant revivers. No one knew the temptation of the sanctum revival better than him. He had long expected this to happen. As long as they seized the path of the Sanctum revival, they did not need to care about what the Beyond Grade is thought, because this was the lifeline of countless Beyond Grade as. If most people were given 100 chances to choose, the result would be the same 100 times. Oathkeeper raised his hand and summoned a ball of soul flame. Dylan's figure was reflected in it, his gaze inexplicable. I don't know if you'll be able to impress me. Chapter 1394. This was a secondary dimension. Auroras fell from the sky like fluttering ribbons, and a stream of light shuttled through them at high speed. It was the magic statue carrier of Dylan and the others. After sailing for more than a month, they had already left the control area of the three universal civilizations. Dylan and the others gradually relaxed from their initial vigilance. More than a month ago, Oathkeeper had used his mental projection to see them and then disappeared. They were all revivers of the Holy Covenant, so they had a good understanding of the effects of soul flame. They knew that Oathkeeper could only talk to them and could not lock onto their position in space, so they were not worried about exposing their coordinates. It's been so long. Counting the days, Black Star should have returned from the Sanctum. Oathkeeper said that he would tell us valuable information. He should be here soon. A Beyond Grade, it was playing with a furry pet on the table and casually mentioned this matter. Another person was watering the ornamental plants in the small ecological zone in the cabin. When he heard the question, he looked back and smiled. Oathkeeper seems to want to use this news to change our minds. I want to know what he will say. The revivers in the cabin were all doing their own things, and all the Beyond Grade, as who had left the main universe with Dylan a month ago, had not left yet. Other than special relationships, Beyond Grade as were not willing to submit to others, so no one treated Dylan as a leader. The reason why they had not parted ways yet was mainly because they were working together to deal with the risks of the secondary dimensions. After all, this place was still quite threatening to normal Beyond Grade as. Someone turned to look at Dylan. I'm quite curious. What about you? I'm not curious. Dylan closed his eyes to rest, too lazy to even open them. He snorted. Since you've chosen to leave, be more firm. You're all Beyond Grade as. Don't you have any backbone? Anyway, no matter what he says, I won't go back. Everyone laughed and was about to say something when black sparks suddenly appeared in the cabin, quickly forming Oathkeeper's mental projection. Seeing this, Dylan's brows twitched, and he slowly opened his eyes. The expressions of the other revivers also changed slightly. They stopped smiling, put down what they were doing, and stared at Oathkeeper. You're here again. Dylan narrowed his eyes. Why? Do you still want to persuade me to go back? It's up to you whether you want to return or not. I'm just here to deliver the information. Oathkeeper did not want to bother with him and turned to look at the other curious revivers. A black flame ignited in his palm, and blurry images flashed in it, containing the information of the truth of the Sanctum revival. With a light flick of his finger, streams of sparks scattered out and merged into everyone's foreheads. The information within was directly transmitted to the other party's spiritual brain region. The sequence of events was clear at a glance. The relevant spiritual memories were opened up for inspection. The next moment, everyone received this information and was instantly dumbfounded. So, the Sanctum revival isn't a one-time thing? You and Black Star have been hiding it from us. Many people's expressions changed drastically as they glared at Oathkeeper. Their expressions were indescribably ugly, as if they had just smelled incense. The choice is yours. Oathkeeper couldn't be bothered to say more. After saying that, he dispelled the mental projection and disappeared. Watching him leave, everyone's expressions changed several times. One of the revivers looked around and finally landed on the shocked Dylan. He said firmly, "Everyone, I'll go back and take a look first. See you again if fate allows it." With that, he ignored everyone's reaction and directly got out of the vehicle in a flash. He raised his hand and cast a spell, summoning a directional teleportation door. He stepped in and disappeared with the door. This became a signal, and the revivers bade farewell one after another. Those who were patient would say goodbye, while those who were impatient would leave without saying anything. There was no need to explain anything to this group of temporary companions. They were all people who had been revived before. Their motive for leaving the main universe was that they thought that the one-time sanctum revival was no longer effective for them. This was their last life. However, only now did they know that this was just a scam set up by the Holy Covenant and Black Star. However, the reason was no longer important to them. The unlimited number of sanctum revivals was almost eternal. In front of this benefit, there was nothing to hesitate about. Many of his companions left one after another. Very soon, the lively cabin became empty, leaving only Dylan alone. He did not care about the departure of the others at all. He was still immersed in shock as he muttered to himself, No wonder Black Star didn't care about us avoidance parties. It turns out that he had this trump card in his hands. The opportunity for eternal life was right in front of him, but Dylan's expression changed, and he was extremely conflicted. A few days later, in the top-floor conference room of the training base, Han Xiao sat at the head of the table and looked around at the many beyond grade as present. Seeing that everyone was staring at him, he casually said, Now that the truth of the Sanctum Revival has been revealed, everyone knows the truth. Now that everyone knows the truth about the Sanctum Revival, I believe there is no need for me to repeat the unnecessary explanation. Everyone should have digested this information in the past few days. The reason I gathered everyone today is to discuss the follow-up issues of the Sanctum Revival. This will be an important trump card for us to fight against the World Tree. The three universal civilizations were very surprised by this and decided to continue to support it and keep it a secret from the public for the time being. Everyone present nodded silently with a subtle expression. They believed that there were surprises, but they were more shocked. Even if they used their buts to think, they could imagine how the leaders of the three universal civilizations would feel when they found out about this surprise. They had been trying to find Han Xiao for the past few days, but Han Xiao had temporarily left after using the Sanctum Revival and could not be contacted at all. He had only returned now and publicly summoned all the Beyond Grade as in the training base. All the participating Beyond Grade as had been waiting for the meeting and immediately rushed over. No one was absent. Han Xiao took in everyone's expressions, tapped his finger on the table, and chuckled. By the way, let's gather everyone's opinions today and see if everyone is willing to continue participating in the battle. After all, from now on, participating in the battle will be linked to the treatment of the Sanctum Revival. I need to record it down. There might be people who don't like this treatment, but I can't force them. After all, I'm a very democratic person. Democratic? Shameless. Everyone cursed in their hearts. Black Star had grasped this lifeline, and his right to speak had risen to a new level. It was almost as if he had the final say. Who would be willing to give up this treatment? Although they were complaining in their hearts, the Beyond Grade as present were still very honest. One after another, they could not wait to speak. Count me in. There's no reason to give up halfway. Of course, we'll continue fighting. Everyone expressed their stance enthusiastically, indicating that they would continue to participate in the battle. Originally, a portion of the third batch of revivers did not participate in the Battle of the Interception Circle, but after seeing the substantial evidence of the unlimited number of Sanctum Revivals, they all changed their words. Han Xiao smiled as he watched this scene. He opened a virtual screen, pulled up the memo, and recorded the names of those who expressed their stance in front of everyone. The temptation of unlimited Sanctum Revivals is indeed something that not many people can resist. The effect is similar to what I expected. A few days ago, Han Xiao had received a report from Oathkeeper that the Holy Covenant Revivers had also requested to come out of seclusion to participate in the battle. These few days, he had gone to deal with this matter and appeased the Holy Covenant Revivers, indicating that they would only need to take action when the World Tree invaded their territory. For now, there was no need for them to come out. They were still hiding in the dark, and they only needed to accept his targeted training plan. The reason why the Holy Covenant Revivers were in seclusion was partly because they were unwilling to continue getting involved in the battle between the organizations, and partly because they had a grudge against the three universal civilizations. However, they had all abandoned their original intentions and changed their minds. Although their words sounded nice, their actions were still realistic enough. The beyond grade, as who knew their own needs, basically made rational choices. Han Xiao naturally would not laugh at anything. It was just human nature. Not many people could watch others enjoy this benefit while they did not have a share. Just as everyone was expressing their stance, the door of the conference room was suddenly pulled open, interrupting the meeting. Everyone turned around and could not help but have a playful look on their faces. They saw that the revivers of the Avoidance faction who had stayed on planet Finn had all arrived and entered. The room immediately fell silent. This group of Avoidance faction who did not leave with Dylan stood by the table. Han Xiao glanced around, put on a calm expression, and casually said, "Why are you guys here? What's the matter?" Hearing this, one of the Avoidance factions stepped out from the crowd and spoke loudly as if he was the representative of everyone. "Your Excellency Black Star, after careful consideration, we have made a unanimous decision. Please allow us to join the training. We apply to participate in the battle." The Beyond Grade, as present, exchanged looks, shook their heads, and laughed. They were not surprised at all. Han Xiao smiled, nodded, and said, "As I said before, if you change your mind one day, we also welcome you to fight alongside us." With that, he snapped his fingers, and with a flash of mechanical force, the conference table suddenly moved. Mechanical particles extended, and the table slowly expanded. Everyone's seats also slid, leaving more space. New seats rose from the ground one after another. After doing this, Han Xiao casually pointed to the empty seats and chuckled. "Everyone, please take a seat." Seeing this, the group of revivers heaved a sigh of relief. They nodded and thanked him before finding empty seats to sit down. They had originally wanted to watch a group of association members stop the enemy at the front line, but after learning the truth about the Sanctum revival from Baiger, everyone changed their minds overnight and decided to participate in the battle. Originally, they were still worried that Black Star would make things difficult for them, or at the very least, someone would make a few sarcastic remarks. However, they realized that this group of participants acted as if it was a matter of course, and no one mocked their choice. This made them relax. However, thinking about it, they were all the same. The big brother would not mock the second brother. Sun Hunter glanced at them and said, "Why are there only so few of you? There should be some talents, right? Where's that smelly elf king?" A former member of the Avoidance faction, paused and smiled helplessly. They don't want to get involved in the war and have already left the main universe. No one can contact them. Everyone was astonished. Not everyone knew about this matter. Kasui had concealed the news. Then they really suffered a huge loss to miss such a good thing. Sun Hunter clicked his tongue in wonder. The corners of many people's mouths curled up as they secretly mocked. In any case, they had to finish the path they had chosen. They would not feel sorry for this group of people who ran away. It was a pity that they did not know the story in Han Zhao's memories. Otherwise, they would have known that there was a suitable description for this kind of behavior. It was as if they had entered lust after 4 or 9 years. They still don't know the truth about the Sanctum revival, right? Should we chase them back? Milizaus turned around and asked. Han Xiao did not mind and pretended to be calm. Our association is not an organization that can only be entered and not left. They have the freedom to leave. There's no need to care about them. Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly paused, chuckled, and continued. Besides, didn't they come back on their own? After saying that, everyone noticed it and turned to look at the bright starry sky outside the window. They saw a teleportation gate spinning open, and streams of light landed on the training base. Soon, dense footsteps came from afar, getting closer and closer. Everyone turned to look at the open door. Under everyone's gazes, all the revivers of the Avoidance faction who had run away appeared at the door and walked in one after another. Dylan was the last to leave. Kasui calmly took a sip of his tea. After this group of people returned because they could not find Black Star, they contacted him one after another. He arranged for everyone to appear together today and separate from the other group that stayed behind to avoid the war. However, Only he and Han Xiao knew about this matter. Yo, we were just talking about you guys. Didn't you say you were staying away from the war? Why are you back? Sun Hunter winked and said in a teasing tone. The others also had mocking expressions on their faces. Their gazes kept sweeping past Dylan, who was at the end of the team. They still remembered that Dylan was the most determined person to avoid the war. His resolute expression when he slammed the table and objected to participating in the war was still vivid in their minds. But now he was silent, expressionless, and looking straight ahead as if he treated everyone else as air. He did not even look at anyone after entering the room. Dylan ignored Sun Hunter and looked at Han Xiao. Black Star, we hope to participate in the war. Do you agree? As soon as he said that, the others stopped talking and turned to look at Han Xiao, waiting for his decision. Han Xiao glanced at the group of people and knocked on the table. A batch of empty seats rose from the ground again. Sit. Seeing this, the group of people relaxed. They did not dare look into Han Xiao's eyes. After bowing their heads, they quickly sat down. Seeing that Han Xiao did not have any intention of talking to him, the anxiety in Dylan's heart dissipated a little. He found a seat and sat down obediently. Before he returned, he had been worried that he would be punished. After all, he had always disagreed in the past, so it was very likely that Black Star was unwilling to accept him. He was not confident and felt that he would be mocked no matter what. He did not expect Black Star to treat him the same, as if he did not care about him at all. At this moment, Sun Hunter pursed his lips and looked at Dylan with disdain. TSK, didn't you say you would never regret it? Didn't you have a deep grudge? Weren't you quite stubborn? I look down on you. Dylan did not mind. He could not suppress his foul mouth and retorted, Do I need you to think highly of me? It's my freedom to do whatever I want. Can I change my mind? In order to make you think highly of me, you want me to give up the chance to live forever. Who do you think you are? He had always done what he wanted. If he cared about the opinions of others, he would not have died so tragically in history. After a battle in his heart, he finally chose the chance to live forever. Although the hatred of the past was engraved in his heart, it did not blind his rationality. He was not willing to fight for the three universal civilizations. Hatred was one factor, and the other factor was that there were no benefits. Now that the truth of the Sanctum revival was right in front of him, he naturally knew what was more important. There were infinite possibilities as long as he was alive, and the contempt of others was not an obstacle to him making the right decision. Humph, I'll kill you one day. Sun Hunter snorted and turned around, too lazy to argue with this guy. The others also retracted their gazes. For the sake of important benefits, not many beyond grade as would be affected by the opinions of others. It was fine to mock them in their hearts, but they could understand the choice of these people. There was nothing to look down on. Han Xiao ignored them and waited for everyone to quiet down before continuing to talk about business. Not long after, this simple meeting ended, and everyone dispersed with their own thoughts. Just as Dylan was about to leave, Han Xiao's voice suddenly came from behind. Stay for a while. Everyone paused and looked back at the calm Han Xiao playfully. They quickened their pace and left, deliberately leaving some space for themselves. Soon, only the two of them were left in the room. Dylan's expression froze. He turned back to look at Han Xiao, not daring to look into Han Xiao's indifferent eyes. What's the matter? Han Xiao tilted his head and pretended to be confused. You incited the members to leave the association. Don't tell me you think this matter is over just like that. What do you want to do? Dylan's heart skipped a beat. Although he had a foul mouth, that was because of his personality. It was not that he was afraid of nothing. However, Han Xiao did not answer immediately. Instead, he said to himself, he just said, Your experience is indeed very tragic, but this is not an excuse for your incitement. Are you the only one here who has a grudge with the three universal civilizations? You're the only one. I don't care about your hatred. That's your private matter. How you deal with it has nothing to do with me, and I don't sympathize with you. You deserve to be beaten to death. I only care about whether my plan can be carried out as usual and whether the battle can develop smoothly. You've obstructed me many times, so you should pay a price. I've already put down my grudge for the time being and am willing to come back and work for the three universal civilizations. What else do you want? Dylan felt even more uneasy as he said in a deep voice. What does it have to do with me, whether you put down your grudge or not? Do you think I'll spoil you just because you've overcome your difficulties? If you didn't have the chance to live forever, would you have come back? I only care about whether you can play a role. Han Xiao was not going to fall for it. He slowly said, but you took the initiative to come back. You did make the right choice. No path is dark, so I'll give you a chance. What are you doing? Dylan clenched his fists and carefully retreated. If you didn't come back today, I would have hunted you down and not let you have the chance to encounter the World Tree. I believe your companions would have been happy to expose your route. After you died, I would have sent you to the underworld and worked for the battle. I would have never let you free. However, I'm very satisfied that you came back yourself, so I won't kill you. I'll still send an unstable factor like you to the underworld, but I promise that after the war ends, I'll remove your hero spirit identity and use the Sanctum Revival to return you to normal. You'll still have eternal life in the future. As he spoke, Han Xiao slowly stood up, rubbed his fists, and narrowed his eyes. I hope you better fight back. You don't speak human language every day. I've long wanted to beat you up and fix your mouth. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.